Chapter 774. Initially, he thought that the area around him should be where the power of the Holy Grail was the densest. However, the moment he crossed the border and entered the neighboring country, he realized that he was wrong. Others could not see any difference, but he clearly realized that although the sky was still the same, the world here was completely different from his own country. The dense power of the Holy Grail was like liquid. If he deliberately tried to sense it, it would even make him feel sticky all over, as if he had fallen into a swamp. Seeing him frown slightly, the captain sitting next to him asked cautiously, "Director Chen, what's wrong? Is there a problem with the plane?" Chen Guang checked the preset autopilot route and sat up. "It's nothing. Take over the plane. I'm going to rest." There was less than an hour before they reached their destination. When they reached the destination, the plane would not land. Chen Guang and Enchanting would parachute directly. The destination of the two parachuting was the town that the Shattered World Task Force was temporarily staying at, called Utopia. Utopia was located at the foot of Mount Baral. From there, they would hike up the mountain and pass through the forest. After about 10 hours, they would reach the depths of Mount Baral. If there were no accidents, this operation should be a very standard jungle special operation. Apart from the two martial arts seniors and Wu Miaowan, everyone else had rich experience in this. Of course, the task force would not come together with great fanfare. Instead, they would first quietly land at the military airport of the neighboring country. After that, they would all split up and use various means to reach Utopia. Then, they would quietly sneak into the town and hide separately. The former elite employees of the Special Affairs Bureau and the special agents of the Security Bureau had their own means. The two seniors and Wu Miaowan traveled with Shui Lin, disguised as tourists, and stayed at the hotel in Utopia. The neighboring country was also mostly made up of Asians. In addition, Utopia was close to the scenic Mount Baral, so there was a lot of human traffic. The group's stealthy infiltration should not be easily seen through. Enchanting was sleeping soundly on the wooden bed. She was carefree and had a good sleep. Chen Guang lay on the other wooden bed next to her. He turned his head to look at her, envious of her carefree nature. However, she did not know that the two of them were in the punishment realm. Although she was upset and had a sense of crisis in her chest, it was not surprising that she could sleep. Just what kind of tricks was this punishment realm up to? This thought emerged in Chen Guang's mind again. Although he hadn't slept for a day and a night, his spirit was still so excited, and he didn't feel tired at all. He was especially annoyed by this kind of situation. He knew that something would happen, but he still came. He didn't have much time left. However, until now, there was still no concrete information. Just now, he secretly picked up Enchanting's phone and sent a WeChat message to Wu Miaowan, asking her what she was doing. A few seconds later, Wu Miaowan replied, saying that she could not sleep and was scared. But if you asked her what she was afraid of, she didn't know. He asked her if there was anything unusual, but she replied that everything was normal. It was just that there was no signal on the TV, which was a little annoying. It was obvious that Wu Miaowan was in a very safe situation. Otherwise, she would not be in the mood to watch television to relieve her tiredness. But when he told her not to be afraid, she would say something else. Her heart was beating so fast that it felt like it was about to jump out of her throat. She couldn't control her emotions at all. About an hour ago, Wu Miaowan had secretly gone to her master, who was sleeping next to her, who was the beautiful woman in flowery clothes. She hoped to postpone tomorrow's operation, but her request was rejected. Her master's exact words were, "What are you afraid of? This is our first operation since we came to the Guangding General Headquarters. The reason why Abbess Xine Yuan and I came with you is to establish the position of Thousand Despair Sect and Myriad Flower Valley in the Guangding General Headquarters as soon as possible. Don't think that you and Enchanting are the deputy chiefs, but that's only because we stood on the side early and the two of you are valued by Chen Guang. That's why you have today's position. Now that more and more sects are joining us, it's different. Even Plainclothes Sect and Fist Sect of the 8 major sects have come in person, and 7 out of the 27 sects have come. There are crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the general headquarters. If we don't pay attention, we'll lose our position. You guys, don't be ignorant just because you're by Qinguang's side. It's easy to start a business, but it's hard to keep it. Our myriad Flower Valley and Thousand Despair sect are already declining. If we don't fight, the sects will completely decline. How can I face our ancestors then? Wu Miaowan argued. Head Chief Qin isn't that kind of person. The beautiful woman in flowery clothes patted her head and looked at her disciple with a doting gaze. You're so loyal to Qinguang. I have nothing to do with the head chief. Enchanting is the one who has something to do with him, not me. The beautiful woman in flowery clothes smiled without saying a word. I know. That's why I asked you to come with me to train you, right? First of all, there's nothing between you and Qinguang. So, no matter what kind of person Qinguang is, it has nothing to do with you. I'm sure of one thing. You're not considered one of his people now. Besides, how many men were good people? Today, he'll pledge his undying love to you, but tomorrow, he'll fall in love with the new. If you don't learn some real skills from me, how will you make him submit obediently? Master. Wu Miaowan recalled the things that her master had taught her these past few days. Her face turned red and her heart raced. She was ashamed and resentful. I've really misjudged you. I didn't expect Master to be this kind of person. Alright, I should have thought of it a long time ago. It's just that I wasn't mentally prepared. I'll have a day like this too. Don't act like a spoiled child. Do you think that it's over with just one success? Do you think that your little bit of skill is enough? In your dreams. Actually, I'm still worried. You're too ignorant. In my opinion, you should pull Enchanting along as well. The two of you will be tied to the same boat. That way, you'll be able to sit back and relax. Master. Alright. We still have business to attend to tomorrow. Go and rest first. We'll talk another day. In short, you have to know that the glory you and Enchanting have now is only on the surface. If one doesn't think about the future, they'll have to worry about the present. Not only can we not postpone tomorrow's operation, we have to do it beautifully. Tomorrow, you'll be by my side. Although your skills are a little lacking, you'll definitely have no problem dealing with ordinary people. Just like that, Wu Miaowan was forcefully pushed back to her room by her master, Wu Qingming. Qinguang knew that the task force was still very safe. He had also thought of summoning them back, but just as the thought surfaced in his mind, it was rejected by the heavenly Holy Grail. Unlike the previous reminder, it did not warn him not to do so. Instead, it bluntly told him that the retreat order would not succeed because they were already trapped. Qinguang was even more bewildered. Wu Miaowan's reply clearly stated that they were currently hiding in their respective hiding places. Shui Lin was still communicating with everyone, so where did she get the idea of being trapped come from? That was ridiculous. Around 7 in the morning, the instructor of the transport plane walked over with 2 backpacks and said, Director Chen, we'll be arriving at Wutua town soon. Here are 2 parachute bags. You must remember the main points of parachuting just now. Qinguang nodded. Got it. Then, he knocked Enchanting awake. Wake up, sleepyhead. We're going to parachute. Enchanting opened her sleepy eyes and took the backpack from Qinguang in a daze. She rubbed her eyes and asked, Are we there yet? Of course. You're still sleeping. Qinguang tied the backpack on his back while giving instructions to the instructor. The instructor's nagging made Qinguang really afraid that something would go wrong. He was such a high-ranking official, and his first parachute jump was from his own plane. If something went wrong, he would be the scapegoat, and he would not be able to handle it. He tugged at Qinguang's sleeve and pointed to the rope on the right side of the backpack. Director Chen, this is the rope. You must remember it well. After you jump, count to 20 in your heart and pull it. You must use all your strength. Oh right, if you don't pull it the first time, don't panic. There's plenty of time to land. You can turn around and manually open the parachute. Okay. Thanks for the reminder, but you really don't have to worry. Chen Guang patted the instructor's shoulder and pointed to Enchanting beside him. Why don't you give her some instructions? The instructor turned to Enchanting again, but she waved her hand impatiently. I heard everything just now. It's just a rope. It's a piece of cake. I've parachuted a few times before. Don't be so long-winded. 3 minutes later, the plane descended to a safe altitude for parachuting. The speed had also slowed down to the critical line. It was time to jump. When Chen Guang jumped out, he could hear the wind whistling in his ears. The gale that blew against his face made it hard for him to breathe. However, he didn't panic in his heart and continued to count down. Although he told the instructor that it was his first parachute jump, it was actually a routine in his pilot training. He just did not deliberately train for it. After all, parachuting was just a simple parachute jump. There was no need for fancy jumps like diving. In fact, he felt very at ease. Anyway, there was still a long way to go. As he counted down, he turned around and faced the sky. He saw that Enchanting had also jumped out of the cabin door. To be honest, parachuting in the fresh morning air under the morning sun really made people feel relaxed and happy. He touched his side and found the rope. Holding it in his hand, he felt more at ease. They were getting closer and closer to utopia. In short, it did not matter what the situation was. Anyway, I'm here. Come, realm of punishment. Let me see how good you are. Right, I seem to have forgotten something. Oh my god. F***ck. My holy grail is still in the other bag. I didn't take it off on the plane. F***ck. Damn it. Fortunately, I had the communicator on my waist. I gave the old man 2 seconds to calm down. Then, I let that damn instructor throw me down. At this time, about 100 meters behind Chen Guang, Enchanting seemed to be searching for something. Chen Guang narrowed his eyes slightly. Although he was far away, Enchanting's pale little face was exceptionally clear in his fiery eyes that relied on the divine dart technique. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong. She seemed to be panicking. Enchanting began to twist her body, trying to find the so-called emergency switch. She also turned her body in a circle. In the next second, when Chen Guang saw the bag on her back, he instantly understood what was going on. Isn't that my F***king bag? Enchanting also stared blankly at the bag that was pulled to her side. Her whole body froze in the air. A heart-wrenching scream came from the walkie-talkie. It was that instructor. Director Chen. Deputy Director Enchanting took the wrong bag. Chen Guang covered his face. Sigh. Enchanting was also dumbfounded. She clearly remembered that she took the parachute bag. Why did she take the wrong one? Why was this happening? Wasn't that instructor very responsible? Why didn't he notice it before she jumped down? Chen Guang's back was facing the wind. His heart was cold. So exciting. Just now, the electronic voice of the Holy Grail sounded again. Warning. Warning. The first stage of the realm of punishment has arrived. Supreme bad luck. Redeemer. Pray for the best. Just like that, the overly exciting journey to the punishment realm appeared in front of the two of them in a dazzling manner, catching them off guard. Chapter 775. Damn you, you better pray for yourself. Why did these words sound so annoying? How could a normal parachute carry the wrong bag? I've been tricked by the heavenly Holy Grail again. This phenomenon was so abnormal and strange that it made one's balls break, okay? Although Enchanting was a little muddle-headed at times, she was actually very reliable. She had been in charge of the Guangdong General Administration for a long time, and she had never made any mistakes. Taking the wrong bag while parachuting was something that could cost one's life, was not something that would happen normally. Therefore, just as the Heavenly Holy Grail said, he and Enchanting were now shrouded in supreme bad luck. When she was carrying the bag on her back, she was dominated by an inexplicable mysterious force. Her brain froze, and she unknowingly took Chen Guang's bag. Unfortunately, Chen Guang's hiking bag was of excellent quality and well made. The straps were almost no different from parachuting bags. Even Enchanting, who boasted that she had parachuted a few times, didn't realize it at all. She even felt that the straps were especially sturdy. Not only that, under the influence of supreme bad luck, the originally serious and responsible transport counselor put too much attention on Chen Guang, the director of the Guangdong General Administration. As for Enchanting, who was a deputy, she acted very professionally, confidently, and impatiently. The counselor didn't notice it, and the result was like this. Chen Guang silently picked up the communicator on his waist and said to the counselor inside, "I already know. What should we do?" The counselor was still wailing at the top of his voice. "You're asking me?" The counselor was stunned. Yes, he was the counselor on the plane. He was supposed to guide Chen Guang and Enchanting in parachuting. What should he do when something like this happened? There was no point. Enchanting heard the entire conversation between Chen Guang and the counselor through the communicator, but her mind was blank. She didn't know what she was thinking, and just stared blankly at the sky above her head, which was getting farther and farther away. At this moment, she only had one thought in her mind. It's over, I'm going to die. No matter how powerful a martial artist was, it was impossible to survive falling from such a height. Chen Guang. Enchanting was still falling. She picked up the communicator and called Chen Guang's name weakly. Chen Guang quickly responded, "Okay, I'm listening, I'm listening." Enchanting gulped and said, "I'm going to die." Listening to her desperate tone, Chen Guang wanted to crush the walkie-talkie. "No. You won't die. This was impossible. I won't allow you to die." Enchanting somersaulted in the air and faced Chen Guang, looking at him from afar. The two of them continued to fall. "You don't have to comfort me. I've accepted my fate. Anyway, thank you for understanding my stubbornness for so long. You're not willful at all. How considerate. Don't worry, you really don't worry. I'm thinking of a way. I definitely have a way." Chen Guang subconsciously wanted to ask Lu Li for help, but he suddenly realized that the Heavenly Holy Grail was in the backpack on Enchanting's back. He didn't know if it was because after the real world and the real world merged, he was also considered to be in the world in the cup. He actually couldn't return to Cloud City. His frantic shouting in his heart was useless. Maybe Lu Li chose to ignore him on purpose, or maybe Lu Li couldn't hear his calls for help at all. In short, he couldn't count on Lu Li and the Heavenly Holy Grail. He had to rely on Lu Li's blessings. "Chen Guang, actually, don't talk, don't interrupt my thoughts. I'm thinking of a way. Actually, I quite like you." "Shut up." Enchanting's eyes gradually became misty. "Let me talk a little more. I won't have a chance to talk to you in the future. Although I'm not good with words sometimes, and I often laugh at you and bully you from time to time, I actually just want you to pay more attention to me. I almost believed you." Chen Guang interrupted her again. He didn't believe what Enchanting said at all. Although he had always been confident, he wasn't conceited. "Although I'm handsome, I'm really not that handsome to the point where I can charm everyone I see, right? Besides, you're just a little Lolita. I feel that you're still underage and can only look but not eat. What's the use of you liking me?" At this moment, Enchanting must be saying these because she felt that she was definitely going to die. Her brain short-circuited and confused. She wanted to use these words to leave more impressions in his mind. She was afraid that she would be quickly forgotten after death. It must be like this. Forget it if you don't believe me. Anyway, it's like this. Anyway, I'm very happy to know you in this life. I hope that I can know you from the beginning in my next life. When a person was about to die, his words were kind. Since she got to know Chen Guang, when had Enchanting been so easy to talk to? Got it. Suddenly, Chen Guang shouted. Got what? Enchanting didn't understand. Chen Guang said quickly like a machine gun, you adjust your posture, like a fish. That's right, try to reduce the wind resistance and speed up the fall. Just now, he was confused because he was worried. In fact, Enchanting could still be saved. When Enchanting heard this, she glanced at him again and tried to twist her body again. As expected of a martial artist, even though she knew that she was going to die, she was still able to force herself to calm down. She twisted her body slightly and really became like a cannonball. She stretched out her hands, and in this way, the speed at which she was falling was actually a little faster. That's it. Keep this posture. As Chen Guang said, he opened his arms and forced himself to lie down and fall down. His falling speed was a little slower than before. The two of them, one fast and one slow, slowly pulled closer to each other. Are you going to catch me and share a parachute? Enchanting straightened her neck and asked. Chen Guang answered, of course. Enchanting looked at the ground in front of her and calculated in her mind for a moment. The height seems to be not enough. And this parachute should be designed for a single person, right? Can the two of us handle it? Chen Guang curled his lips indifferently. Who cares? Let's do it first. How will we know if we don't try? But if we fail, you will die too, right? Why do I have to be so cautious? I don't have time to think about what might happen. Let's try first. Hey! You'd better be obedient and maintain this posture. Don't think about dying alone, that kind of bullshit *t. Anyway, I will keep this posture until I catch you. If you don't want to kill me, behave yourself. Enchanting blushed. She really wanted to change to Chen Guang's posture just now to let him know that he couldn't catch her and let him back off. But as soon as this thought popped up in her mind, it was seen through. Since she met Chen Guang, although Enchanting was taken care of by him, most of the time, Chen Guang was quite unreliable. Most of the time, he was quite chinibu. His success was mostly due to luck. Enchanting felt very relaxed when she got along with Chen Guang, and she liked the feeling of working with him. So, she resolutely gave up her identity as the president of the Armed Escort Association and became Chen Guang's little follower. On the surface, it was because hanging out with Chen Guang could make it easier to promote national darts with his influence in the darts industry. In fact, the real reason was not so complicated. It was nothing more than that it was fun to hang out with Chen Guang, that was all. As for becoming the deputy director of the Guangdong General Administration, it was an accessory that she got by chance. Her master, the sword-wielding nun, who was also Abbess Xian Yuan, paid special attention to this matter. She didn't care as much as she imagined. Enchanting was actually a very casual person. She didn't think much about the future. But at this time, she had to admit that she was a little touched, so much so that her heart was pounding. He knew that it was likely that both of them would die, but he didn't care. Why are you doing this? I really didn't know that you were such a responsible person in the past. If I can really survive this time, I must be a real fan of yours. In mid-air, the two were still falling. They were getting closer and closer to the ground, and the distance between each other was also getting closer. It seems a little out of reach. Enchanting began to panic. Chen Guang shook his head while slightly adjusting his posture in the air. He made himself move slightly sideways during the process of falling, and continued to get closer to Enchanting. The distance between the two had been reduced to less than 10 meters, but they were probably less than 3 kilometers away from the ground. It's really too late. Why don't you open your auxiliary umbrella and try to catch up? Chen Guang looked back at the ground, then turned back to look at Enchanting. He shook his head. Don't worry, I have calculated it. I can catch you when you are 400 meters away from the ground. Stop it. Your brain isn't a calculator. How did you calculate it? Chen Guang snorted. Intuition. Don't pin your life on such unreliable intuition. What else can I do? Chen Guang snorted. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. It's time. Enchanting was at a loss. What time is it? The next moment, under her dumbfounded gaze, Chen Guang curled his body in the air and took off his trousers. He then tied a knot at lightning speed. After that, he grabbed the trousers with both hands and lifted them up high. A strong gust of wind poured into the trousers, causing them to clap. This artificial parachute slowed down the speed of his descent. Thanks to the high quality of this year's new Versace autumn wear, such a strong tearing force did not tear the trousers. Enchanting was dumbfounded. You can do that? Hee, I just thought of an idea. Oh right, take off your trousers and throw them away. That way, your wind resistance will be lower. It will definitely work. Don't blame me for not realizing it until now. My brain is also quite stiff at this time. Humans were like this. When they were forced into a desperate situation, their potential had to be unleashed bit by bit. Old Master Guang's wit was not something that could jump out at once. He had to slowly squeeze it out bit by bit. Enchanting did as she was told. Her movements were simpler and more violent. She exerted force with both hands and tore the trousers. 2 seconds later, her two slender white legs were straightened in the air. If it wasn't for the fact that everyone was in a bad situation, Chen Guang really felt that Enchanting's legs were actually quite pleasing to the eye. They were really beautiful under the morning sun. Humph, what supreme bad luck. In front of the old man's wit, it was nothing. The speed at which the two of them approached increased a little. You've torn your bag and clothes too. Chen Guang shouted again. Since there was a telepathic connection between him and the heavenly Holy Grail, he was not afraid that he would not be able to find it after falling. Thus, Chen Guang thought of a new idea. 3 seconds later, Enchanting's clothes were torn again. She pushed her backpack back with force, providing her with a little more strength to go down. Her fair and beautiful body accelerated towards Chen Guang. This girl was actually not wearing the underwear of ordinary women. Instead, she was wearing a bra without straps. It seemed that she had been practicing yoga recently and really cared about this matter. A gust of wind blew hard on her body. Enchanting actually felt quite ashamed. This was not a deserted house. They were in the air, in broad daylight. However, the effect of her clothes being torn was also very obvious. She was falling like a cannonball, and her speed really became faster. The distance between the two of them rapidly decreased from 8 meters to 7 meters, 6 meters, 5 meters, 4 meters, 3 meters. Almost there. Almost there. Chen Guang focused his eyes and stared at Enchanting, who was getting closer and closer to him. Enchanting looked at the ground behind Chen Guang and felt very anxious. But the ground is getting closer and closer. It doesn't matter. Ah! Suddenly, Enchanting screamed. It was very simple. Without the shoulder straps, the strong wind brushed past the surface of her body. First, a crease appeared on her chest, and then, she felt an even stronger pulling force. In the blink of an eye, her chest slipped off her body. Not only that, when it passed by her panties, it even pulled out the folds of her panties, causing them to fly off as well. However, at this moment, life and death were hanging by a thread. Enchanting did not dare to change her diving posture. She could only let her bra and underwear fall far away from her. The fair and beautiful lowly body continued to dive down from the sky. Behind her, a black bra and black silk panties floated in the air. How beautiful! Enchanting did not know whether she was shy or excited because she was about to be caught by Chen Guang and have a chance to live. Her heart was beating like 10,000 deer, and her face was red as if it was scalded by boiling water. Coming, coming, coming. Chen Guang knew the ground behind him was getting closer and closer. However, he did not care about that at all. He only wanted to catch Enchanting. Finally, their 5 fingers collided. Chen Guang swung his body violently and grabbed Enchanting's wrist. Then, he pulled hard. The two finally met in the air. Chen Guang exerted his strength and spun his body in the air with her. Hold my waist. Enchanting had no time to be shy and did as he said. The next moment, Enchanting sat on Chen Guang's waist. Chen Guang's hands had never moved so fast. He untied the rope on the waist of the parachute in a flash. Then, he reached under Enchanting's crotch and tied her thighs. Then, he made a tight knot and tied the two of them together. Hold me tight. You must hold me tight. There is no time. I can only fix my legs. Even if you break my ribs, you can't let go. Chen Guang shouted. Enchanting nodded heavily. Okay. We are going to the bottom. I know. Chen Guang pulled the safety rope and the parachute opened. In a flash, it opened like a mushroom cloud above their heads. The rope on Chen Guang's back and waist lifted him up. His falling speed was suddenly reduced. Enchanting, who was riding on Chen Guang's waist, was about to turn over in the blink of an eye because only her thighs were tied to the rope. Harder. Break my ribs. After all, Enchanting was a martial artist at the peak of bone strength. Once she exerted her strength, she was not an ordinary person. Chen Guang only felt a creaking sound coming from his back. He was really going to be broken. Their center of gravity was not coordinated. Enchanting was still being pulled down. She tightened her grip on Chen Guang's waist and opened her legs. But she was still falling down. Suddenly, a certain part of Chen Guang's body suddenly pushed up. Then, with lightning speed, he drilled into a part of her body that was opened because of this embarrassing position. Ah! Enchanting screamed. Chen Guang said righteously, you can't blame me. When I was helping you with the rope, I accidentally touched the seam and was a little stimulated. Moreover, you are not wearing it. I can't control myself at all. Also, my part is very strong. One more fulcrum, one more safety. Yes, that's right. Air refueling, docking successful. Chapter 776. Enchanting and Chen Guang faced each other, grabbing his back tightly. She didn't know if it was because she was afraid of falling or because she couldn't control her body. Hey! Hey! Be gentle. Be gentle. Are you really trying to strangle me to death? At first, Chen Guang was still holding it in, but he couldn't take it anymore. His bones were cracking as if they were about to break. I was just being polite when I asked you to break my ribs. Now that the situation is stabilized, don't take it seriously. If I don't shout, I'll get through the most dangerous moment and get seriously injured by you. Wouldn't that be a waste of my life? Enchanting was about to cry. Let go of me. Chen Guang asked quietly, are you sure? Although the parachute had been opened and the speed at which they were falling had slowed down, they were still at least 200 meters from the ground. Enchanting turned to look to the side, then turned back and shook her head like a rattle drum. Don't let go of me. As she spoke, she tried to move her body up again, trying to break free from the invasion of something. However, Chen Guang had tied their legs so tightly that she couldn't move them. After a long time, it was useless, so she stopped moving and looked at Chen Guang pitifully. Actually, Chen Guang had wanted to take the opportunity to do something, but seeing how pitiful she looked, he felt awkward and didn't think too much about it. Sighing, Chen Guang said helplessly, hey, if I said that I didn't mean it and that it was an accident, would you believe me? Enchanting didn't say anything and continued to stare at Chen Guang. Chen Guang felt guilty under her gaze. It's true. Believe me. It was really just a coincidence. How could I have known it would be so accurate? An accident. Okay? It was an accident. Enchanting was about to cry. I know it was an accident. Chen Guang was extremely distressed. Then don't look at me like that, okay? I'm feeling creepy. I can't control my emotions. I can't do anything about it. Although I just confessed to you, this is a little too fast. As Enchanting spoke, she patted Chen Guang's shoulder fiercely. No one knew whether she was acting coquettishly or feeling wronged. Then she said, "We're about to land. You come out first." Chen Guang shrugged helplessly. I can't get out. Then can you soften first? What do you think? All right, forget it, sigh. Enchanting didn't say anything, and Chen Guang didn't know what to say in this situation. The two of them stared at each other, and the atmosphere was rather awkward. Are they on good terms? Of course. Was there a possibility that the two of them would develop into such a situation in the future? Of course there were, not to mention that Enchanting had just confessed to Chen Guang. But was this situation normal? Of course it wasn't normal. Who would have thought that something like this would actually happen? Just a few seconds ago, Enchanting was still confessing, and it was the kind of last words that were equivalent to leaving behind a will before death. She would only say a lot of things that she didn't dare to say normally, and she wasn't really mentally prepared. In the end, in the blink of an eye, they connected in the air. This kind of development was completely unexpected to Enchanting and Chen Guang. Not even the gods could have thought of it. Therefore, this was one of the disadvantages of the strongest pile driver in history. Its reaction was also a little too fast. When Enchanting approached just now, Chen Guang accidentally glanced at her a few more times. When he grabbed her and spun her in the air, he accidentally touched a slightly more sensitive spot. When he tied the rope for her, he accidentally touched a slightly more sensitive spot. It sounded complicated, but the whole process added up to less than 15 seconds. Who would have thought that the thief's reaction would be so fast and fierce? Who would have thought that when Enchanting sat down, she just happened to press down CK's underwear? Then there was a slurping sound, cough cough, forget it. It would be a waste of time to talk about these things. Although Chen Guang would flirt with Enchanting from time to time, he really didn't think of doing such a beastly thing. Although Enchanting always said that she was already an adult, in Chen Guang's opinion, this little girl was still too young and too cute. Why did I sigh? Sigh. He sighed heavily again. From now on, how should I face my life? Can I still proudly tell others that I am an upright person? This was not the most awkward thing. The most awkward thing was that he still couldn't take it out. Enchanting seemed to have accepted her fate. She tilted her head and looked at him. Why are you sighing? Why? Do you feel that you have suffered a loss? Chen Guang shook his head. No, I just feel uncomfortable. Enchanting blushed. What are you uncomfortable about? My conscience is uncomfortable. I really feel uncomfortable. Enchanting suppressed the discomfort and rolled her eyes. She didn't know what to say to him. Forget it. Look at him. Anyway, this was the current situation. She might as well accept her fate. Actually, I don't blame you. It's just that you weren't mentally prepared. All of a sudden, Chen Guang recalled something and asked, Oh, right. Let me ask you something. Are you really 18? Enchanting bit his shoulder harshly. I told you long ago that I'm 18 years old. Why don't you believe me? Sigh. Chen Guang started to sigh again. Hence, a woman's mood was really a very complicated thing. Although Enchanting didn't look very reliable, she was still an authentic woman deep down. At the beginning, she felt very aggrieved. In the end, when Chen Guang showed such a melancholy expression, she became more and more unhappy. She felt that Chen Guang was taking advantage of her and was still pretending to be innocent. That's enough. Suddenly, Xian Qin looked at him fiercely. Chen Guang looked like he was about to cry. What's the matter now? What's the matter now? Xian Qin glared at him angrily. Do you want to anger me to death? How can you be so unreasonable? You have a bad conscience, my ass. Do you think I'm that kind of petty person? Did I blame you for anything? No, I really didn't. Chen Guang lied through his teeth. She clearly slapped, scratched, and hit him, but at this time, it was more important to make her happy. Xian Qin said again, that's it. Besides, people who practice martial arts, people of the pugilistic world, don't have so many rules. Chen Guang's eyes widened. He thought that he had underestimated little Xian Qin. Such reasonable words actually came out of her mouth, and it seemed like she was comforting him. Hey, it's okay. It's really not a big deal. We were in an emergency situation. It's not a big deal that this happened. I almost died. You caught me, and then we used the same parachute to land safely. It's that simple. The distance between us is a little closer, so it became a negative number. Xian Qin patted his shoulder again and said. Chen Guang was very impressed. Thinking about it carefully, what she said really made sense. For some reason, he became upright again. Chen Guang said loudly, that's right. Since it happened, we should face it together. But now we are about to land, and we are not completely out of danger yet. This is the most important thing. Xian Qin nodded. Yes. In order to show that she really didn't care, she moved a little, looking very bold and unrestrained. In the end, she caused trouble. Originally, Chen Guang had a hard time controlling the pile driver's combat power. This time, he really couldn't keep it steady. Ah. Oh my god, oh my god. I can't. You stop. Stop. Chen Guang tried to look at Xian Qin calmly the whole time. Even when they landed, he forced his legs to support the ground first, using the strength of his legs to cushion the weight of the two people. Although the speed of the parachute landing was not slow, both of them were physically gifted. Although Chen Guang's chest was still at the level of an ordinary person, the strength of his legs and waist had completely exceeded the limit of a human, not to mention Xian Qin. Finally, as Xian Qin screamed at the top of her lungs, she finally collapsed to the ground, exhausted. The two of them were pressed under the parachute. Chen Guang lay flat on the ground as a human head cushion, covering his face, extremely helpless. Xian Qin clawed at him randomly, screaming. When Xian Qin finally settled down, Chen Guang carefully untied the knot and slowly put her down. As expected of a martial artist at the peak of bone strength, she actually didn't completely faint. Instead, she trembled on the ground and raised her head in a daze to look at him. You bad guy. Actually, old Master Guang was wronged. Really, he had already tried very hard to control himself. In fact, he hadn't even tried so hard in the first half of his life. But it was useless. The pile driver was moving on its own. Alas, if I had really done something bad, you would be foaming at the mouth and fainting on the ground. You don't know how much effort I've put into my plan. However, the two of them didn't have much time to dawdle. The heavenly Holy Grail didn't give Chen Guang any time to catch his breath. The first test, Supreme Misfortune, was successfully passed. The second test, Chen Guang stared at the umbrella cover with his head as his heart raced. He thought to himself, what would the second test be? The second test, Supreme Unrivaled Misfortune. Savior, please be prepared. F***CK. Can you be any more boring? Can you play some new tricks other than making me unlucky? The third test, Kill a great earthquake tremor. A double test. Savior, Please pray for your own good. *CK, I just said it for fun. I didn't tell you to play any new tricks right away. What the hell is the third test before the second test is over? My mouth is a little too open. I'm done for. It's here. The familiar praying for your own good. Who are you, Duo Fu? What kind of dirty deal do you have with the Holy Grail? You stole the show today, Duo Fu. I don't want to beg you at all. Wait, what's a great earthquake tremor? I jumped out of the plane and originally planned to land near Wutua town. But because I opened the parachute too late, I landed a lot earlier. So I should be a few kilometers away from Wutua town now. But I should still be on Earth, right? It's at most 1,000 or 800 kilometers away from our vast Huaxia, right? But why did an even more baffling earthshaker suddenly appear out of nowhere? What the hell is going on? While his mind was full of questions, he felt the ground shake violently, as if a huge monster had landed not far away from him and Enchanting. There was no time to think. Chen Guang got up, spread out his hands, and grabbed the parachute curtain tightly. He used his Qilin arm and tore the parachute apart. Enchanting, who was still resting on the ground, screamed, "What are you doing? I'm not dressed yet." The next second, Zhong Enchanting stopped screaming. She and Chen Guang turned their heads and stared blankly at the 3-meter-tall monster not far away. Its whole body was made of yellow rock, but it was clearly in the shape of a human. This huge monster stood proudly about 20 meters away from the two of them. It had a head but no face. Its body was slightly arched, and it was disproportionately long. Its arms, which were about half a meter thick, swayed in front of its body. It seemed to be very strong. As its body swayed, countless tiny dust and pebbles fell from its body. But what was even more strange was that at the same time, many pebbles and yellow mud floated up from the ground and stuck to its body, completely defying gravity. The pebbles and sand fell and floated up again, causing the yellow sand around the so-called Great Earthquake Tremor to fly. It looked really strange and indescribable. As if sensing Chen Guang's gaze, the Great Earthquake Tremor raised its 2 stone arms high and hammered its chest fiercely. The smoke and dust became even thicker. Roar. It was actually roaring. It didn't even have a mouth, so how did it make this sound? What is this? What is this? What the *CK? What exactly is the real world? This doesn't look real at all, okay? Chen Guang finally lost his composure and screamed out loud. The world of punishment this time was really beyond his imagination. Chapter 777. The parachute curtain that Enchanting was holding tightly slipped from her palms. She was so shocked that she forgot about the fact that she was exposed. After roaring, the Great Earthquake Tremor suddenly crawled on the ground. Then, with an explosive force that was completely out of proportion to its size and appearance, it used both its hands and feet to brazenly rush towards Chen Guang and Enchanting. In fact, at this time, the best choice for Chen Guang was to turn his head and dodge to the side. But he couldn't dodge. Enchanting seemed to be unable to move at this time. He didn't have the time to turn around and pick her up. The name of this Great Earthquake Tremor was very cumbersome. It looked quite stiff, but it was actually super agile. Damn, isn't it just a 3-meter-tall stone man? Although I don't know what kind of tricks it has, I don't believe that my Kirin arm doesn't have the power to fight. Chen Guang took a deep breath and clenched his fists. He accumulated strength in his whole body. Other than the unfinished chest and abdomen, the muscles and other parts of his body seemed to be rapidly expanding. Yes, I have nowhere to retreat. The loli is right behind me. Come on. Dang dang. AI. Why am I inexplicably flying? The stone man hasn't arrived yet? What happened? So fast. Freedom is the direction of running with the wind. Chasing the power of thunder and lightning? Chen Guang turned his body sideways. His whole body was parallel to the ground. He raised his head and looked forward. He could only see the forest and the road in front of him rapidly retreating. The stone man behind him was still roaring non-stop. The sound of its running on the ground was loud, but the distance between them wasn't shortened. The whistling wind blew on his face. This early morning breeze would be too beautiful if there wasn't a great earthquake tremor howling as it chased after them. But what is going on? Could it be that my superpower awakened temporarily and I obtained the ability to fly? Not good. Enchanting is still here. Chen Guang turned his head and looked at the position behind him. It was Enchanting's waist, breasts, 2 white hemispheres, and below, cough cough. In any case, some things swayed in front of him as he ran. Fortunately, the little loli's body was tight. Even when she was running with all her might, her pair of breasts that had broken free from the restraints were not thrown up and down. It did not hinder her movement. However, from this special angle, it was quite pleasing to the eye. Are you stupid? Do you have the strength of such a huge stone man? What the hell is this? The little girl, who was completely naked, hugged Chen Guang by the waist. Her right hand grabbed his waist and locked him tightly in the crook of her arm. Although her hands weren't long enough, they were still able to hold on to the other side of Chen Guang's waist. Can you blame me? I see you lying on the ground naked and unable to move. I was already mentally prepared to fight with the great earthquake tremor. Why didn't you tell me you could move earlier? Chen Guang casually argued. Although Lolita usually looked delicate, she was truly worthy of her title as a pinnacle bone force expert when she brought out her true ability. Her skinny body had nuclear power hidden in it, and her legs were practically moving at a rapid pace. Enchanting snorted disdainfully. Aren't you looking down on me too much? Hey, I am at the peak of bone strength. Besides, my whole body was weak because I was afraid that you would lose your dignity as a man, so I deliberately pretended to make you happy, okay? TSK, you think you can make this girl weak all over with 2 needles? Don't joke around. Chen Guang was unconvinced. Hey, look at my bad temper. Do you know who you are talking to? You are facing the strongest pile driver in history. He really didn't believe it. It's not like I don't know how to act. If what you did just now was an act, then I'll give you 10 Oscars. This little loli must have used some unknown secret method to recover her mobility in such a short period of time and run faster than usual. Wait, what did you say just now? The great earthquake tremor? How do you know that monster's name? Enchanting suddenly reacted. Chen Guang decisively decided to lie to her. I just gave it a new name. How is it? Is it cool? Enchanting was speechless. Chen Guang continued to change the topic. Oh right, why don't you put me down? I can run by myself. It doesn't look good for you to run naked like this. What if you bump into someone? As the 2 of them ran away in a panic, they had unknowingly run away from Wutua town for 2 to 3 minutes. They had even come to the side of the road and passed by a few houses. But the strange thing was, from beginning to end, the 2 of them didn't see another living person. No, I can't run far, Enchanting suddenly said. Enchanting suddenly said. As soon as she finished speaking, she ran even faster. What the hell? Chen Guang was puzzled. Enchanting coughed lightly and seemed to have become a little weak. Okay, I won't lie to you. I really didn't have any strength just now. I was scared by the stone man, so I didn't think too much. I ate 2 empowerment pills. Although I recovered my mobility for a short time, I will be completely out of strength after a while. And then? Chen Guang had a faint headache, but he couldn't blame Enchanting. He, who knew a little about the inside story, was scared to the point of peeing his pants by the tremor earth. She, a little girl who didn't know anything, could calm down in such a short time, make a decision, and decisively run away with him in her arms. It was really not easy. We are definitely not this monster's match. I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, this is it. This monster's speed is not much slower than me after taking the empowerment pill. When I run out of strength later, you can run by yourself. What about you? Enchanting said half-jokingly. Don't worry about me. I'm your deputy director. Let the leader go first, and I'll be responsible for bringing up the rear. Qinguang broke free from her. Nonsense. Qinguang used too much force, and Enchanting almost lost her balance and fell to the ground. What are you doing? Qinguang turned around and carried her in his arms. Nothing. I should be the one asking you. What the hell is the leader going first? You can't stop taking the medicine. Enchanting panicked. I'm not joking with you. Put me down. You can't run away. Qinguang curled his lips in disdain. Can I trouble you to take a look? I'm sorry, but I seem to be running a little faster than you. Enchanting turned her head away from Qinguang. Indeed, the stone man chasing them seemed to be getting further and further away. Qinguang asked again, how is it? I didn't lie to you, right? Enchanting nodded and didn't say anything else. Perhaps because she didn't have to run anymore, the breath that she had been holding in was suddenly released. Her body suddenly became limp, and this time, she really didn't even have the strength to lift her arms. Qinguang, on the other hand, didn't blush as he ran with her in his arms. Soldiers were trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. Wasn't this the day that he had painstakingly trained Eelis' legs for? I'm the best at running, so let's go. As they ran, Qinguang took some time to say, the side effects of this empowerment pill are a little strong. Enchanting said weakly, actually, if I only took one pill, it shouldn't be a problem. But when I was taking the medicine just now, maybe my hand was shaking too much, so I poured out 2 pills at once. I didn't look carefully at the time and stuffed them all into my mouth. The other one seems to have a quality problem or something. It's very powerful and takes effect very quickly, but the side effects seem to be very strong too. Qinguang immediately understood. Alright, it seemed that this invincible supreme martial artist's bad luck had hit Enchanting's head again. It was just like the time when she had taken the wrong bag when she jumped. She was supposed to be the one to take the blame first. I'm really thankful that I have a scapegoat like you by my side. As the saying goes, the first beat of a drum, the second beat of a drum, the third beat of a drum, the second beat of a drum, and the third beat of a drum will be exhausted. He originally wanted to compete with this earthshaker in terms of strength and put his life on the line. But once he started running, he really didn't know what was going on. His whole body became inert and he couldn't stop at all. Running away was addictive. In between, he had once mustered up the courage to turn back and fight again, but then he looked at Enchanting, who had turned into a pile of mud in his arms, and turned back to glance at the earthshaker. He saw that when this guy passed by an electric pole, its shoulder was accidentally brushed by it, and the electric pole made of cement collapsed with a loud bang. It made one's eyelids twitch wildly. Old Master Guang said that after careful consideration, the old man might really not be its match. Damn, this thing's strength was a little unreasonable. After running for a few minutes with Enchanting in his arms, although Qinguang was faster and gradually shook off the earthshaker, this damn thing seemed to have a built-in navigation system. Even though they couldn't see each other in their line of sight, it still firmly followed the correct path and chased relentlessly. Where do we run to now? This stone man doesn't seem to get tired. Qinguang grunted. It's fine, I'm thinking of a way. Enchanting raised another question. Only the heavens knew what was driving the earthshaker. In any case, Qinguang had been running for his life for so long, but it still maintained a constant speed and followed closely behind, as if it didn't get tired at all. Now that things had come to this, Qinguang had no other ideas. He could only rely on the telepathic connection between him and the heavenly Holy Grail to run straight to where his backpack had landed. He would arrive in about a minute or two. He would first get the unlucky heavenly Holy Grail back in his hands and see if there was any other way. At this moment, the most awkward person was actually Enchanting. She had been naked since they were in midair. In broad daylight, her and Guang's situation was really too embarrassing. Unfortunately, they didn't even have time to catch their breath, let alone find clothes to wear. Fortunately, they hadn't bumped into a pedestrian or a car along the way. They didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. It's all my fault for being muddle-headed. If I didn't eat the wrong empowerment pill, I would be able to run with you right now, and things wouldn't be like this. Enchanting blamed herself. Guang didn't care. It's fine, it's fine. You're unlucky, but I won't be. Don't worry about those details. Grab my neck tightly. I'm going to jump into that ditch. After saying that, Guang rose into the air. Enchanting stretched out her soft hand and barely hooked her neck. His feet landed heavily on the ground. He didn't care about Enchanting's white and tender chest slapping his face. He adjusted his body slightly and ran forward again. Then, there was a crack. What's wrong? Even Enchanting could hear a cracking sound coming from his body. Cold sweat dripped down Guang's forehead. If I said I sprained my ankle, would you believe me? If I believed you, then why are you still running? Why else? I have to run even if my leg is broken, okay? Damn the invincible supreme bad luck. It was even cooler than version 1.0 supreme bad luck. Enchanting, the scapegoat, didn't manage to bear the full brunt of it. Please don't cause any more trouble, right? Spraining his ankle hurt, but he could grit his teeth and endure it. He couldn't die here, right? It was obvious that Tremor Earthshaker couldn't communicate with him. The backpack was getting closer and closer, but after spraining his ankle, Guang slowed down slightly. Not only was he unable to increase the distance between him and the stone man, but he was even gradually caught up. Finally, as the feeling in his heart grew stronger, the backpack seemed to be right in front of him. Seeing that the dawn was right in front of him, his foot no longer hurt, and his leg was no longer sore. Even the leg hair that fluttered in the wind became glossier. F***CK. Why is it hanging on the tree? Hugging Enchanting, Guang stood under a tree that required 7 to 8 people to encircle. Raising his head, he saw his beloved backpack hanging on the branch of the tree, laughing at his misfortune. There was no time to hesitate. Guang flipped his hand and threw Enchanting onto his back. Do you still have strength in your arms? Hug my neck tightly, it's time to climb the tree. Although Enchanting had no idea what Guang planned to do, she could only trust him unconditionally. She mustered up her strength and hugged his shoulders tightly. Okay. When Enchanting hugged him tightly, Guang climbed up the yellow fruit tree. When he was about 10 meters above the ground, Enchanting saw that he was sweating from exhaustion and asked, "Are you going to get something from the treetop? Why don't I wait for you down there? That thing is coming, you won't make it in time." Left with no choice, Guang put Enchanting down and let her hug the tree trunk. Then, he used the strength of his Qilin arm to carve a mark on the tree trunk and rushed up like a rock climber. The running and roaring sound of the stone man were getting closer and closer. Guang was getting closer and closer to his heavenly holy grail. Got it. Guang grabbed the backpack and was about to celebrate when the unpleasant roar came from under the tree. He looked down and saw that the thing was less than 50 meters away from the yellow fruit tree. He put the backpack on his back and slid down. When he landed next to Enchanting, the stone man was already under the tree. What should I do? What should I do now? Enchanting, who had finally calmed down, was in a daze again. Guang looked at her first, then took out the heavenly holy grail satchel from the backpack and tied it around his waist. Don't worry, I'm here. Enchanting screamed, it's going to hit the tree. With a loud bang, the thick yellow fruit tree was hit by the earth tremor with its shoulder. The branches shook and leaves flew everywhere. The two people on the tree were on the verge of falling. What was more frightening was that the tree trunk looked like it was going to break. They couldn't let it hit the tree again, or the tree would definitely fall. Chen Guang squeezed the heavenly holy grail in his satchel. I don't believe it. There's always a way out. The old man is the great savior, you can't force me to die here so easily. He stood up abruptly and took out a watermelon-shaped military knife from the backpack hanging on the tree trunk. F***CK. I'll kill you. He was mad. With a roar, he jumped down from the tree. Enchanting screamed, no. Chen Guang, who was flying in the air, waved his hand heroically. It's okay. Hide in the tree. I'll lure it away. Actually, he wasn't as irrational as he looked. This unlucky stone man's target should be him. He would try to land first. If he couldn't withstand it, he would run. If he lured this thing away, at least Enchanting would be able to escape first. If he could defeat it, forget it, that didn't seem very realistic. Chen Guang held the knife hilt with both hands and pointed the tip downwards. He was aiming at the earth tremor's skull, if it even had one. Die. Creak. Chen Guang didn't land on the back of the stone man as he wished. When he was falling in the air, he was scratched on the back by a special branch that grew out of the tree trunk. Not only did it leave a bloody mark on his back, but he was also hung on the tree trunk. Swaying, he was hanging about 2 to 3 meters in front of the earth tremor. Ah. Hi. Nice to meet you. Silently putting the knife aside, Chen Guang waved his hand at the faceless stone man in front of him. So awkward. The invincible supreme being's bad luck was really strong. I'm so unlucky today. Chapter 778. Even though his tone was very gentle and communicative, like an experienced diplomat, and not at all inferior to Su Qin and Zhang Yi, it was useless. But it was useless. The great earthquake tremor couldn't understand what he was saying at all. Summer insects couldn't talk about ice. A sudden howl came from the stone head. Then the monster swung its thick right arm like lightning and slapped heavily at Chen Guang's shoulder. Enchanting screamed from the tree. She stood up and wanted to jump down from the tree to help, but she could not make it in time. Chen Guang was joking with the great earthquake tremor, but from the moment he was hung on the tree branch, he had been secretly accumulating power and preparing to receive this big guy's full power attack. His body turned to the side, his hands holding the military blade horizontally. The tip of the blade faced the palm of the great earthquake tremor. With a clang, Chen Guang was sent flying sideways. The tough military blade embedded in the stone man's palm and passed through. As for Chen Guang, he flew 17 or 18 meters away and rolled 3 or 4 times on the ground. His Qilin arm was in so much pain that he had lost feeling. If it weren't for the fact that he had trained his chest muscles before, and if it weren't for the fact that he cleverly diverted the force when he was hit, and that he relied on his well-developed chest muscles and Qilin arms, as well as his exquisite posture, he was afraid that his entire body would have been smashed to pieces. He had just barely managed to stand up when the great earthquake tremor pounded its chest again. With a howl, it continued to charge at Chen Guang. The military blade embedded in its palm did not seem to affect it at all. It did not seem to feel it. Chen Guang was dumbstruck. This monster was too crazy. It was not injured at all? Then how should I deal with it? Never mind, I'll run first. Stupid stone man, you want to deal with me with your personality? Goodbye. After making up his mind, Chen Guang turned and fled after cursing. It was fine as long as Enchanting was fine. On the tree branch, how could Enchanting not know what Chen Guang was planning? She was extremely anxious, but there was nothing she could do. Enchanting clenched her fists tightly, feeling both regretful and hateful. If she hadn't mistakenly taken 2 empowerment pills, if one of them hadn't expired, she wouldn't be so weak right now. She wanted to help, but she knew that it was impossible for her to catch up with Chen Guang, let alone deal with this stone man. If she didn't drag him down, Chen Guang would be able to run faster, and he might even have a chance to get rid of this damn thing. No matter how unwilling she was, Enchanting also understood that her best choice was to stay on the tree and quickly think of all ways to get rid of the after effects of the vigor pill and restore her strength. But his leg was injured. Sure enough, although Chen Guang was still very fast, when his right foot landed on the ground, it gave off an uncoordinated feeling. It was clear that he had just sprained his foot, and the injury was getting worse. At this moment, Enchanting was anxious, but Chen Guang was even more anxious. Using himself as bait to save Enchanting's life, this kind of impassioned and fearless thing was done. He didn't regret it, and it was impossible for him to change his mind, but it didn't mean that he was really not afraid of death. As the owner of the heavenly Holy Grail, he was actually more afraid of death than anyone else. The old man's journey was the Sea of Stars and the 3,000 worlds. How could he die in the hands of a mere stone man like you? Lioli, help me. It was useless, calling for help was really useless. No matter how hard he shouted in his heart or with his mouth, Lioli didn't give him any response. He didn't know whether she was pretending to be offline or she really couldn't hear Chen Guang's call for help. Ever since the heavenly Holy Grail hinted about the integration of the real world and reality, everything seemed to be out of Chen Guang's control. He began to panic. After all, spraining his ankle previously brought some inconvenience. At first, he ran faster than when he was carrying Enchanting, but slowly, he didn't know how long he had run, but he slowed down. I won't really die here, will I? Invincible supreme bad luck, double checkpoints, 10 times the strength of the world of punishment, the integration of the real world and reality, turning the whole universe into a world in a cup. It seemed like this was really too much. Now I really have to pray for more blessings. My blessings, where are you? There's a house in front. There's someone. Unknowingly, I ran to Wutua town like a headless fly. Go and ask for help. Save it. Chen Guang turned in another direction without thinking. He still couldn't lure this monster into the crowd. With the destructive power of this thing, it could kill gods and Buddhas. His own knife had become an ornament in its palm, so it wouldn't make any difference if it was replaced with a gun. His limping was also quite strenuous. The earthquake-like footsteps behind him were getting closer and closer. Because of his change of direction, the distance between him and the great earthquake tremor was shortened a lot. I'm probably going to die this time, right? Chen Guang thought so in his heart as he staggered as he ran. Of all the mistakes he made, he shouldn't have underestimated the power of the world of punishment. The heavenly Holy Grail really didn't lie to me. It said 10 times and it really was 10 times. It was really strong. Leaving the main road and the town, he didn't know where to run to. Lioli, whom he relied on, also didn't move. He really racked his brains, but still couldn't think of a way to escape. This stone man was extremely strong and fast, and it was not afraid of knives and spears. He didn't bring any powerful weapons with him either. As the saying goes, when a person is unlucky, even drinking water has to fill the gaps between the teeth. As he was running, he didn't know which wicked guy spilled a ladle of water on the dirt road and stepped on it with his right foot. He was already a little unstable to begin with, so he slipped and fell on the ground. He staggered sideways on the ground, dodging the heavy stomp of the great earthquake tremor. He crawled up with a roll and continued to run forward. Damn it. Don't mess with me like this. If I really died, wouldn't everything be over? Chen Guang cursed in his heart. This is so frustrating. If I wasn't bald, my hair would have turned white. As the saying goes, heaven never bars one's way. There must be a way. It's just that I didn't think of it. Wiping the muddy water off his face, Chen Guang thought so. Wait, water? Oh my God. It really seems to work. Then the problem is, where do I find water? I have to at least find water that can drown this stone man. Suddenly, the heavenly Holy Grail bubbled again. The conditions for exchange have been met. Does the Redeemer want to use faith points to exchange? Sigh. What the hell is the conditions for exchange? Chen Guang cursed in his heart as he couldn't wait to communicate with the heavenly Holy Grail again. Unlike before, he could finally establish a connection with the heavenly Holy Grail this time. However, there wasn't any exchange list that appeared in front of his eyes. Something appeared in his heart out of nowhere. Looking at the small pond floating in his mind like a mirage, he was speechless. So the so-called conditions for exchange, to put it bluntly, was that he had to think of it first. Then, the punishment realm would think that he had obtained the qualifications to exchange and send this thing to him. To put it bluntly, the heavenly Holy Grail was encouraging him to use his brain to think of a solution. As long as he came up with an idea first, this unlucky Grail would make his wish come true. It's just that the price is a little expensive. 660,000 faith points to exchange for a little pond. Calculating with his fingers, alright, this unlucky Holy Grail might have purposely said it this way, because he just happened to have that many left. Come on. My beloved little pond, it's worth your faith points. Splash. In the next second, the soil under his feet disappeared into thin air, and his whole body fell into the water with a splash. Although it happened in a hurry, but as an old pirate that had roamed the sea of fleeting for countless years, he instantly reacted after entering the water. He quickly slapped the water like a carp, rolling and continuing to scurry forward, dodging the big palm of the earth tremor behind him. The water splashed and the waves pushed him forward again, pushing him forward by a large margin. Although it was called a little pond, its diameter was actually tens of meters. Chen Guang scurried forward. From time to time he would pop his head out of the water to look back. He saw that the originally arrogant earth tremor was half submerged in the water, only its stone head was still above the water surface. This damn thing continued to stubbornly move forward in Chen Guang's direction as if it didn't have any intelligence, but its speed was a lot slower, even slower than Chen Guang's swimming speed. Apart from that, the rolling dust on its body had all fallen into the water, of course it was gone. The ability to continuously attract the rocks and sand on the ground to itself seemed to be the innate skill of this great earthquake tremor. Although it looked like its entire body was a solid block of rock, it was actually a combination of sand and a huge amount of small rocks under the control of its innate skill. Its body looked solid, but in fact it was semi-mobile, which allowed it to have an almost indestructible body while having infinite strength. But when its environment became a pond, no stones and mud on the ground were sucked up by it. It could only suck a little mud from the bottom of the pond, but at the same time the stones on its body still maintained the trend of disintegration. This pond that cost Chen Guang 660,000 faith points to exchange for cut off the earth tremor's seemingly perfect internal and external circulation, causing it to only be able to go out and not go in. At the same time, due to the mud constantly being sucked into its body, its movements became more and more sluggish. Chen Guang brought this thing around in the pond for 5 to 6 minutes before it finally stopped moving. It bubbled and sank into the water. After a short while, the entire pond was dyed yellow, as if a truck of sand had been poured into it. Chen Guang lay on the shore and let out a long sigh of relief. It was finally done. Fortunately, although this thing had infinite strength, its intelligence was a bit lacking. The brain was the #1 productive force. My productivity is even higher, and I still have an unscrupulous profiteer to sell me a pond at this time. In fact, he knew that he had also made use of the rules of the punishment realm. Although he was not sure if this stone man was a real living creature, there was no doubt that if it wanted to live, it definitely could not go into the water. But this stone man that was chasing him was not like this, even if this pond suddenly appeared under its feet because of his exchange, causing it to fall directly in. But according to common sense, it should have tried to leave at the first moment, but not only did it not do so, it persevered in chasing him until it completely died in the water. This meant that the tremor earth must have been restricted by the rules of the punishment realm, and had to chase him relentlessly like an arrow that had been shot. Thinking about it carefully, it died quite miserably. Chen Guang was about to turn back towards the direction of the Huang Guoshu, but he suddenly saw a flash of something shining on the surface of the water. He hurriedly dived into the water again and swam in that direction. Swimming over was also due to luck, or perhaps the pond that he had summoned was helping him. The crystal that should have sunk was pushed up by the rolling water bubbles. Qinguang grabbed it in his hand and looked at it. It was a sparkling and translucent light yellow crystal, about the size of a fingernail. He was immediately overjoyed. According to the old man's many years of experience playing online games, this must be an item that dropped after defeating the boss. Of course. He hurriedly put it into his bosom as if it was a treasure. At this moment, the heavenly Holy Grail's notification sounded again. Congratulations, Redeemer, for successfully killing the Tremor Earth. You have cleared the second stage, the Invincible Supremacy Bad Luck, and the third stage, the Great Tremor Earth. As Qinguang swam to the side of the pond, he sighed in his heart. The power of this fusion stage was really not just for show. Fortunately, the old man was quick-witted and survived. Then what about the reward? What was the reward? There is no reward. He didn't know if the heavenly Holy Grail understood his inner complaints, but it actually gave him such an extra reminder. According to this stinky Grail's usual character, it shouldn't have told Qinguang this. But it wasn't that there was no good news. The long-lost Azure's voice finally sounded in his heart. Yo! Qinguang, you're still alive? Azure's voice carried an indescribable sense of surprise, but it made Qinguang's heart feel even colder. The more you act like this, the clearer it is telling me that you really didn't know about my situation during that period of time, and weren't protecting me. To think that I kept thinking that if I was really at the end of my rope, you would definitely come and save me, but the result was not like that at all. The greatest sorrow in the world was to always think that there was still 100 yuan in the left pocket of your pants, and happily order 3 side dishes at a restaurant, only to find that there was a hole in the bottom of your left pocket when you paid the bill. At this moment, he felt like this. His greatest trump card actually didn't exist at all. What a sad story. Come on, don't look so wronged. It's the realm of punishment that's 10 times stronger than before. It's not that easy to fool. Before you can get through the first 3 stages, I really can't do anything. The heavenly Holy Grail has also completely cut off my divine power. Qinguang climbed ashore and sighed. Forget it. From now on, we won't lose contact, right? Yes, but I still can't bring you any substantial help. I can only answer some of your questions. I have 10,000 questions to ask you, okay? Speak. What is the Tremor Earth? Isn't this on Earth? Isn't this the real world? Where did this thing come from? Lioli chuckled. The real world is the same as the realm of destiny. It's one of the special worlds of the heavenly Holy Grail. The last time you encountered the realm of punishment, the real world had already fused with your real world once. However, the strength of the fusion at that time wasn't enough, so it didn't cause much change to the real world. This is already the second fusion, and the degree of fusion is much deeper than the last time. So, it's normal for some strange things that you don't recognize to appear. As Qinguang limped forward, he asked, "Why did you say it so casually?" Lioli's image appeared vaguely in his mind. She was shrugging her shoulders. Because this kind of elemental creature, I've already stopped playing with it when I was in the divine realm. It's even more common than the ants in your world. I really thank you for your knowledge. You're welcome. Then, after I finish this realm of punishment, the power of the real world will return, right? Qinguang asked cautiously. But out of his expectation, Luli replied in an uncertain tone, probably, maybe, probably, maybe. Don't scare me. You're not sure. Lioli humphed. Didn't I say it already? The heavenly Holy Grail is one of the 10 great artifacts of the divine realm. After it was created, you're still its first master. You're just a fresh lab rat. I'm not sure what exactly will happen. Qinguang silently hammered his heart. The old man was a sinner. If this damn thing really appeared everywhere in the world, then wouldn't he become a sinner that destroyed humanity? You don't have to worry about this. The range of elemental creatures' appearance is currently limited to your mission area, which is near this utopia. The power of the Holy Grail in other places isn't strong enough to support the birth of elemental creatures. Lioli clearly heard the nagging in Qinguang's heart. At least she said some good news. All right, then tell me what this thing is. Qinguang took out the piece of crystal that he had just picked up from his pocket and asked excitedly. In his heart, he was thinking, quickly tell me what kind of heart of earth this is. After eating it, I can increase my experience or obtain the blessings of Mother Earth or something. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to obtain a special ability. He was just a little unhappy. This crystal seemed to have signs of melting after being soaked in water. It seemed like the quality of this heart of earth wasn't good. That's right, this was at least a defective heart of earth. Lioli glanced at it. In my opinion, this is a lemon-flavored fruit candy. Qinguang was speechless. Damn it, even the unlucky Tremor Earth had to set me up after its death. It's fine if you suck stones, but why the heck did you even suck fruit candy? Chapter 779. 30 seconds later, he felt a little more at ease. I feel that fruit candy isn't bad either. It's been a long time since I've eaten candy with such a pure taste. It's really sweet when held in my mouth. Also, a fruit candy that could be carefully hidden in the body of that stone person must have some kind of connotation. Lioli spoke so casually just now, but she was actually joking with him. At the very least, after holding the candy in his mouth for a short while, his wound felt warm and cozy, as if there were 7 or 8 skilled female masseuses massaging him at the same time. Before he even reached the yellow fruit tree, his sprained ankle had miraculously and rapidly healed. Not only that, the bloody wound on his back caused by the tree branch when he jumped down from the yellow fruit tree had also mysteriously disappeared. When he touched the skin on his back, it was smooth and delicate, just like a newborn baby. Barbara's shower gel, anyone who used it would know. This feeling reminded him of one of the lines from one of the 12 TV commercials that he had filmed some time ago. In short, the speed at which the wound healed was so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. He was a little unconvinced, so he simply picked up a tree branch from the roadside and fiercely scratched his arm. It was a little painful, but watching as the skin on his left arm that was scratched healed as if time was flowing in reverse, the feeling was really unbearable. You annoying little liar, this is definitely not an ordinary fruit candy. Can't you be a little more serious at a time like this? Qinguang fiercely ridiculed Lioli in his heart. This big sister really doesn't know when to joke. Lioli curled her lips. Didn't I say it before? It's lemon-flavored, so of course it's not ordinary. Alright, I won't talk nonsense with you anymore. Originally, this was indeed just an ordinary fruit candy, but because the great earthquake tremor lacked a core when it was created, the punishment realm randomly found a crystal-clear object, which is this candy, as its core. Although it doesn't have any benefits like Mother Earth's blessing or experience points, after you eat this candy, you will indeed have the same regenerative ability as the great earthquake tremor. What? Does that mean that I've also cultivated an immortal body? I'm invincible. When we get out, I want to beat up 10 Wenwens. Dream on. You're now in the punishment realm, and Utopia is your mission location. The surrounding area is filled with an extremely dense power of the Holy Grail. Be it the Tremor Earth or the promotional pond you just bought, they're all the power of the Holy Grail contained in the real world. The regenerative ability you have now is also from the same source. When your mission is over, if this regenerative ability is still with you, it means that the real world has completely integrated with your real world. Then, I'm afraid that for the rest of your life, you'll have to hunt elemental creatures all over the world. After all, this is all your fault. Do you want that? Qinguang only considered it for 2 seconds. No. What kind of joke was this? Elemental creatures running all over the world? Wouldn't they tire themselves to death? Moreover, the name of the real world sounded so domineering. It was definitely not just about elemental creatures. God knew if there were any other tricks. For example, the werewolves of the West, the Vatican, the Avengers of the United States, the X-Men, or the Indian totem gods, the 3 artifacts of the Yamata no Orochi, the Yasukani no Magatama, or the membrane mages, the Atlantean civilization, the Mayans, or even the legendary Chi-Yu and the Yellow Emperor in the ancient times of Huaxia. If these things became reality from legends like the elemental creatures, the scene would be too beautiful to look at directly, okay? So, it was really not bad for him to be like this. It was not unacceptable to only maintain the regenerative ability for a period of time. At least he was in the punishment realm now. He had just dealt with the Tremor Earth, and none of the 3 main storylines had been completed. This meant that the danger was not over yet. Who knew when this test would end and what else was waiting for him? An additional regenerative ability meant an additional life-saving trump card, an additional guarantee of survival. He trotted all the way back to the yellow fruit tree. Looking up, he saw Enchanting sliding down the tree stiffly in her change of clothes. Chen Guang's own backpack had already been thrown to the ground by her. The time was too short, and she had not recovered well. Perhaps, she was even weaker than an ordinary person. Her whole body was still weak. She clearly had strength, but she just could not use it. When she was sliding down, she lost her grip a few times and almost fell head first. She was very careful, but also very persistent. She was fully focused and highly nervous. She moved down bit by bit. Every time she moved, she had to find a place on the model trunk for a long time that she could land or use her hands to hold on. She was the genius disciple of the Thousand Despair sect. Although she could not say that she could fly over eaves and run on walls, she was still a person who could move as lightly as a swallow. Now, she had to act like a delicate lady when she got down from the tree. It was very sad. In fact, the best choice for her at this moment was to stay on the tree and wait until she had almost recovered. Then, she would try to get down from the tree. However, she did not do that. Chen Guang had been running away for 10 to 20 minutes. The sound of the great earthquake tremor was getting further and further away with him. Previously, she could still hear the roar from afar, but it gradually disappeared. Her heart suddenly became empty. She did not know whether it was Chen Guang who had been dealt with or the stone man who had been dealt with by Chen Guang. If Chen Guang really died here today, he would have died for her. The image of Chen Guang being pressed to the ground and beaten by the terrifying stone man appeared in her mind. The more she thought about it, the more frightened she became. The more she thought about it, the more flustered she became. She was scaring herself. As she moved down slowly, her eyes became more and more moist. Tears gushed out and blurred her vision. Suddenly, maybe because her vision was too blurred, she grabbed the wrong place and pulled a loose piece of bark. With a creak, the bark cracked, and her whole body fell down from the tree on her back. She was about 3 or 4 meters above the ground. As soon as Enchanting turned over, she stuck out her toes and planned to step on the tree trunk with force. Then, she turned 180 degrees in the air so as not to hit her head on the ground. Although she was a little weak, as a martial artist at the peak of bone strength, this level of floor exercise was still a piece of cake. Unless, she missed her step. Although Chen Guang's bad luck of being invincible was gone, Enchanting obviously forgot to look at the almanac when she went out today. Maybe it was because she had been unlucky for a long time that the inertia could not be pulled back in a short time. She seemed to step out elegantly, but unfortunately, she stepped on an empty tree hole. Ah. Well, without the fulcrum to exert force, even Enchanting could do nothing. She screamed and fell to the ground directly. She could only stretch her hands forward desperately, trying to use her hands to slow down the force before her head hit the ground. Under normal circumstances, falling from such a height was like drinking soup for her, and she could do whatever she wanted. But now her hands were weak and she might not be able to bear it. Alas, this time I will be seriously injured even if I don't die. I still want to help. I am really a useless person. Just as she was thinking about this, she suddenly felt that the back of her clothes was lifted, and her whole body spun half a circle in the air. When she came back to her senses, she was already in a warm and strong arms. Am I dreaming? When she fell down, her blood flowed backward. Then, she was lifted up and spun around. It was all thanks to her high martial arts skills that her blood vessels did not explode. However, her head was dizzy and muddled, and she could not run. Being carried by someone, if it were not for the familiar body odor of Qinguang, she probably would have thought that she was being molested. She opened her sleepy eyes and vaguely saw a hazy figure. The morning sun happened to be behind this person's head, gilding his eyes with a halo. Especially his bald head, it was so shiny that he looked like a Buddha descending to the world on TV. Why are you so handsome? At this moment, Qinguang was terrified by Xianqin's expression. She couldn't have gone mad, right? You are my most important scapegoat. What can I do without you? Are you okay? Qinguang tried to make his tone more gentle. Xianqin shook her head in a daze. No. I'm fine, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me. Xianqin rubbed her temples and became a little more clear-headed. It's not a big problem. I'm just a little stunned by your handsomeness. Huh? He let Xianqin sit under the tree and meditate for a few minutes before she finally returned to normal. Let's go. Hurry to the town and meet with them. Qinguang threw the backpack to Xianqin. Here, carry it. Xianqin did not react for a moment. Carry me? She silently complained in her heart. Suddenly, she felt that he was not a gentleman at all. Qinguang snorted. Of course. Otherwise, how am I going to carry you? Oh. So that was it. Hence, the two of them became Qinguang carrying Xianqin and Xianqin carrying the backpack. They jogged all the way to Wutua town. Xianqin, can we discuss something? What's the matter? Can you give me your pants? I only have this one. From the time they had parachuted down until now, old Master Guang had refueled in the air, saved people in the air, landed perfectly, and passed 3 levels in a row. It seemed like an amazing feat, but in fact, he had only been wearing a pair of CK underwear. It was fine when they had not bumped into anyone, but now that they were about to enter Wutua town, he had to stroll in with his lower body half naked. It was a little shameful. What was even more shameful was that although this shameless little loli was wearing the old man's clothes, she was still naked inside. She was lying on his back, and the soft but extremely elastic feeling that came through the 2 thin layers of clothing was too easy to make one's heart flutter. Therefore, the high-quality CK set up a perfect tent, completely betraying the ripples in his heart. What was more uncomfortable was that the pile driver's yield was stronger than an ordinary person's. When it ran, it was like an ancient spearman holding a gun forward, swinging it left and right endlessly. The ancient spearman's luck was and Qinguang felt that it was very inauspicious. Moreover, if he bumped into anyone, he would definitely be treated as a pervert. Xianqin was lying on Qinguang's back, but she did not want to consider his seemingly reasonable request. But I don't have any pants to wear. Qinguang sighed. Sigh, that's true. Oh right, are you wearing underwear? Xianqin nodded. Yes. Where did you get it from? Yours. Pfft. You can do it, you really can do it. My name is Original Flavor, 100 yuan per pair. Remember to transfer the money to my PayPal account when you get back. You're still in this business? I didn't do it originally, but I just started it. Alright, stop fooling around. We're almost there. Xianqin rolled her eyes and took out Qinguang's phone from his backpack. Looking at the time, it was about 8:30 in the morning. She glanced at Qinguang's WeChat and turned pale with fright. Oh no, little Meow Meow and the others have already started gathering and are preparing to leave. It's okay, they shouldn't have gone far. We can catch up. Actually, according to common sense, Chen Guang should have asked Xue Lin and the others to wait for him to rush over and meet up with them. Unfortunately, just as this thought emerged in his mind, it was forbidden by the heavenly Holy Grail. This punishment realm was unreasonable. If it wanted him to save the hostages, it would not give him a shortcut. He could have stopped it in advance, but this unlucky Holy Grail did not give him the chance. At that time, the Holy Grail's notification said, "Redeemer, please correct your attitude and do not make pointless attempts." Remaining time, 23 hours, 7 minutes, and 31 seconds. Current number of people saved, 0. It was completely unreasonable. Wu Miaowan and the others were clearly fine, but this punishment realm seemed to have tacitly assumed that they were in a dangerous situation. There was one more thing that puzzled him. Wu Miaowan was no fool. She knew that Chen Guang and Enchanting were on their way. From her standpoint, it was impossible for her not to inform Xue Lin and her two masters of such important news. Given Chen Guang's status as the director of the General Directorate of Stabilization, and the leader of the task force, Xue Lin was especially respectful toward Chen Guang. As long as he knew that Chen Guang was coming, he would not insist on taking action on time. However, from the beginning to the end, whether it was Chen Guang or Enchanting, they had contacted Wu Miaowan many times, but nothing like this happened. Chen Guang wanted to take the initiative to call Xue Lin, his two masters, and the others, but he could not get through to them at all. It was very puzzling and strange. He could contact Wu Miaowan, but he could not contact anyone else. Wu Miaowan should have taken the initiative to inform them that Chen Guang and Enchanting were coming, but her brain had somehow short-circuited. On one hand, she was happily chatting with Chen Guang and Enchanting on WeChat, and on the other hand, she was worried and uncertain. She tried all kinds of ways to dissuade her masters, but it was useless. She complained to Enchanting or Chen Guang, but she did not have the idea of using Chen Guang's identity to suppress Xue Lin. Something even stranger happened after the two of them entered Utopia Town. Initially, Chen Guang was worried that he would be arrested as an exhibitionist or a pervert if he entered the town in only his underwear. However, when the two of them stood in the middle of Utopia Town's central square, they realized that it was not the case at all. The huge square was empty. The autumn wind blew, rustling the sketch paper that was half fixed on the easel in the corner of the square. Not a single person was there. Is the entire town still in bed? It was almost 9:00 in the morning. Even third brother, who was famous for his laziness, should have gotten up and gone to work by now. Something was wrong. Something was really wrong. Chen Guang walked around the square barefooted. Apart from the easel and the paintbrushes on the ground, he also found some things scattered on the ground. For example, a rope used for jumping rope, a badminton racket, and a chargeable stereo used for square dancing with Chinese characteristics. All these signs showed that there should have been people in this square before a certain period of time, and there were quite a few of them. Someone was drawing, and he should be attaching the sketch paper very seriously and methodically. Someone was jumping rope, and two people were playing badminton. There was a cute Hello Kitty pendant hanging under the handle of one of the racket, indicating that the owner of the racket was a girl. As for the chargeable stereo, it told Chen Guang that there should have been a group of aunties dancing in the square. There were also a few breakfast shops near the square that were open. The steamers were still steaming, and 2 or 3 buns were thrown on the ground, covered in dust. But now, this place was completely empty. There was not even a shadow of a ghost. What's going on? Enchanting, who was beside Chen Guang, was pale and puzzled. Knitting his brows, Chen Guang replied, "Those people suddenly disappeared." Suddenly disappeared? Where did they go? How is that possible? There's no sign at all. Is this the end of the world? Enchanting was getting more and more afraid. Chen Guang shook his head. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Enchanting was puzzled. Why? Chen Guang silently walked into a clothing store whose shutter door was only half open. He bent down and went in. No one saw me running around naked in only my underwear. My face is saved. Enchanting vomited blood. Mr. Big Chrysanthemum Head, your focus is so strange. Enchanting didn't understand Chen Guang's feelings. After the initial shock, Mr. Big Chrysanthemum Head thought about it carefully. It wasn't a big deal for these people to disappear into thin air. Anyway, the entire universe had been changed. It was completely reasonable for the people in Utopia to be instantly transferred somewhere else. It was child's play. There was nothing to make a fuss about. Yes, that's right. The old man was so knowledgeable, and the old man's psychological quality was so strong. Chapter 780. Since he was naked, it couldn't be considered as stealing, but it could be considered as borrowing. Since Chen Guang did not bring any cash with him, he found a pair of pants in an empty clothing store and wore them in shame. At least he didn't have to wear a pair of pants. As for stealing from someone else's store, I'm sorry. I'll pay you back later. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I can only apologize for now. Alright, ask Wu Miaowan where they're meeting up. We'll head there directly. After putting on the pants, Chen Guang felt more confident. He tightened his grip on the satchel around his waist. Now that he had reconnected with Lioli, he felt much more at ease. Enchanting nodded. She picked up her phone and immediately sent a WeChat message to Wu Miaowan. Suddenly remembering this, Chen Guang asked, "Oh right, aren't you going to change? Especially your underwear?" Unexpectedly, the little girl shook her head. No. Huh? The little girl clenched her fists tightly. Huh, what? Men's underwear feels so loose and comfortable. I've recovered a little, and I feel like my movements have become lighter. Loose clothes can help me unleash my true strength. I don't want to be your burden anymore. That's right. She was angry. From the moment she boarded the plane until now, she was extremely dissatisfied with her performance. What the hell was this? She was clearly an inner force martial artist. She should be the one protecting Big Chrysanthemum. Chen Guang turned around and stared at her blankly. This was too scary. Did she awaken some kind of dark soul that she shouldn't have awakened? Was she possessed by some inexplicable power after wearing my underwear? Her combat strength skyrocketed. To be honest, if it's men's underwear, there must be new ones in this store that no one has worn before. You don't have to wear mine, do you? Chen Guang was still a little indignant. The little loli pulled him and ran towards the exit of the town that led to Mount Baylor. All right. Don't worry about these details. We have to hurry and meet up with little Meow Meow. It had been a long time since she came down from the yellow fruit tree. Perhaps it was because she had been adjusting her internal energy while walking, and she must have taken some pellets in between. The after effects of the strength pellet disappeared as quickly as it came. When she recovered, she dragged Chen Guang along as she ran. Her speed wasn't slow at all. Chen Guang silently thought, "You are the perverted mask. Why didn't I notice that you had such a hidden attribute? After you put on my underwear, it was like a shot of adrenaline. How terrifying. When I go back, I must buy a safe to protect my underwear. By the way, can you give me a few more when we get home? Don't you think there's something wrong? If you want to wear men's underwear, you can buy it yourself." Enchanting said impatiently, "Why are you so stingy? Am I not afraid of trouble? What's wrong with taking a few of your underwear? Is it because you don't want to spend money? Really, I can buy you a new one." "Humph. I won't admit it. I just want your original taste. It's really magical, so strange, so weird. Now I feel like I'm on steroids. My whole body is full of energy, and I can't finish it. There must be some scientific principles that I have ignored. Forget it, I will slowly study it later. Anyway, it's better than the strength pill." It's probably similar to the doping in the Olympics. But, how can I admit such a shameful thing to you directly? I'm not stupid, and I'm not a pervert. Chen Guang ran with her while complaining in his heart. Xianqin's words make sense. I have nothing to say. This perverted little loli can't stop. No matter, I should buy a safe to calm myself. It's hard to guard against thieves day and night. Okay. Xianqin muttered, look at your reluctant look. Your fire stick has even strolled through my small garden. Is there anything else to care about? What's wrong with me using your birdcage? Chen Guang sucked in a cold breath. She had really unlocked the darkness attribute. Are you a real man to say such words from your own mouth? Look at your stupid face. Right, why aren't you bleeding? Xianqin rolled her eyes. It's gone from practicing splits when I was young. What's wrong? You got a bargain, and you're afraid that I didn't import it? I didn't even ask you to take responsibility. Don't worry, I will take responsibility. How? Marry me? I'll be the elder, and your Wenwen will be the younger? Let me think about it. Don't think about it. How can I not know you? You look like you can see through me. I didn't see through everything. I know you're still hiding a lot of things from me. For example, you definitely didn't give that monster the name, Earthquake. I'm not a 3-year-old kid anymore. How can I be fooled like that? Sigh, I don't know how to explain it to you. Anyway, this matter is completely beyond the understanding of ordinary people. Just think of the stone man as a particularly powerful lion, tiger, or bear. But I don't know if I'll meet it again. I'm not sure. Xianqin nodded and asked no more. As expected of an inner force martial artist, her nerves were so thick. She actually accepted the strange setting that Chen Guang threw out so calmly. What was even more unbelievable was that she completely accepted what happened in the air so quickly and even became infatuated with the old brand underwear. Even Chen Guang himself found it unbelievable. Following the location that Wu Miaowan sent through WeChat, the two ran all the way to the parking lot outside Wutua town. As a transit station at the foot of the famous Mount Baylor, Wutua town had a large parking lot. According to the original plan, Xuelin and the others would first gather at the parking lot, then take different buses and mix in different tour groups. They would disguise themselves as tourists and first enter the Mount Baylor scenic area. Because the Mount Baylor scenic area was too big, there was a large accommodation area inside the scenic area. Tourists who entered the scenic area had more freedom and would only gather at the accommodation area at night. There were many Huaxia tourists who came from China. As long as the task force was careful enough, they should not be easily discovered. They entered the mountain first and then met up in the primitive forest in the scenic area. Then, they immediately charged deep into the mountain and caught Shatterer off guard. According to Wu Miaowan, she should be sitting on a bus with the tail number 566 with her master, Xuelin, and the others. It would not be difficult to find them. However, the two of them looked at the empty parking lot, which was full of cars, and their faces were full of bewilderment. What the hell? It was fine that there was no one in the town, but why was there not a single living person in the parking lot? Xianqin's lips trembled. She had finally calmed down, but now she was on tenterhooks again. She thought to herself, could it be that this place is haunted? Unknowingly, Xianqin's finger hooked onto Chen Guang's sleeve. What are you doing? Unexpectedly, Chen Guang screamed. Xianqin shouted back even louder than him, nothing. I'm scared. Let me pull you. You're my most important deputy director. Be brave. You disappoint me. Alright, I'll try my best. Xianqin took a deep breath and carefully searched the parking lot with Chen Guang. From time to time, she would pick up her phone and send a message to Wu Miaowan. Little Miaowan, are you guys really in the parking lot? Yes. Where are you guys? Hurry up, the bus is about to leave. The driver is ready to start the engine. Are you really talking about the parking lot in the north of the town near the mountains? But we don't see anyone. There's only one parking lot in Wutua town. That's strange. Where are you guys now? There's a sea of people here. How can there be no one? My dear, are you messing with me? Why would I mess with you? Look at the time, there's really no one here. We're next to the dispatch office. Can you see it? I can see the dispatch office from here, but you're not there. It's next to the big red iron gate. Can't you see it? That's impossible. Is there another dispatch office here? I really can't see it. Wait a minute, I'll think of a way to delay it. I'll come down and find you. After Wu Miaoan finished speaking, there was no more movement. Enchanting held her phone with a blank look on her face. She turned to look at Chen Guang blankly. It's really haunted. Chen Guang did not reply to her. Instead, he quietly placed his hand on her waist. Enchanting screamed again, "What are you doing? Don't touch my waist all of a sudden." Chen Guang coughed lightly. Sorry, I'm actually a little scared. You're the director. You're the one who disappoints me, okay? As Enchanting spoke with a trembling voice, she hugged Chen Guang's waist and asked, "Bureau Chief, is this a ghost? It's really haunted, isn't it?" Chen Guang did not reply to her. Instead, he asked Lioli in his mind what was going on. When they did not see anyone in the plaza earlier, it could be explained that the people of Wutua town were all held hostage. However, the two of them were in the parking lot with Wu Miaoan. According to what Wu Miaoan said, there should be a sea of people here, and this should be the scene she saw now. However, the reality was that there was not a single person. Suddenly, Chen Guang found the bus with the tail number 566 not far away. He pulled Enchanting and ran over. The bus is over there. They ran to the side of the bus. The bus's door was not closed. The two of them got on, but there was still no one inside. Little Miaowei, we're on the bus, but there's no one. I don't see anyone. Not a single person. Enchanting sent another message to Wu Miaoan. After a few seconds, Wu Miaoan replied with a voice message, "I'm next to the dispatch room, but I don't see you. Why is there no one on the bus? The license plate is 7H566. Did you get on this bus? It's this bus. There's no mistaking it. But there's really no one." Wu Miaoan seemed to have gotten off the bus. She sent a voice message, "That's impossible. My master and your master are sitting in the third row from the front. Team leader Shui is sitting in the second row from the back. I'm sitting in the fifth row from the front. How can I not see anyone? What are you doing, sweetheart? You're not messing with me, are you?" Enchanting ran to the seat that Wu Miaoan mentioned with a face full of astonishment. She stared at it for a long time, then reached out her hand in disbelief. Of course, she could only grab air. She turned around and looked at Chen Guang blankly, then pointed to the third row from the front. Little Miaowei said that I'm sitting here with her master. Chen Guang scratched his head. But isn't there no one here? Enchanting nodded. Yes, there's no one. Chen Guang and Enchanting looked at each other. Wu Miaoan, who was on the other end of the WeChat message, sounded very serious. Clearly, everything she saw and heard was the truth. What the two of them saw could not have been an illusion. In that case, there was only one explanation: seeing a ghost. Alright, it could also be another reason that was even more ridiculous than seeing a ghost. Right now, the two of them seemed to be in the same place as everyone else, but in reality, they were in a completely different space and time. What a sci-fi story. Lioli. You have to give me an explanation this time, right? This is completely beyond the scope of the old man's abilities, alright? It's beyond his scope. Fortunately, there was an insider living in Chen Guang's Holy Grail. No matter how unreliable Lioli was, she had to give an explanation for something like this. Lioli sighed faintly. Yes, I've been waiting for you to ask me this question. I've been waiting for a very, very long time. Qin Guang was horrified. This tone sounded very wrong. It was just like what was often shown in movies, where a peerless expert hiding deep in the mountains was finally found by a young talent and entrusted to him before he died. Could it be that Lioli's next words were going to completely change my life? Sigh, that's not right. My life has already been changed a lot. Could it be that from now on, I'm going to open the second chapter of my life? Qin Guang immediately became extremely sincere. Come on, no matter what shocking secret you're going to tell me, I'll be mentally prepared. Actually, it's not that big of a deal. You and that little girl are still on Earth, while the others have been moved to a completely parallel space and time. That is the real world within a cup in your punishment realm this time. It's been like this since the beginning of your mission. I'm quite impressed that you're able to wait until now to understand. Such important information. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Lioli curled her lips very casually. Didn't I just communicate with you not long ago? So you're blaming me now? Then why did you pretend to be so deep just now? This can increase the sense of urgency and suspense, making you feel more immersed. I really have to thank your whole family. Qin Guang secretly beat his chest and stamped his feet. All right, I understand everything. No wonder from the beginning of the punishment realm, he had to save 55 hostages. It turned out that from then on, they were all trapped in a parallel universe. Xin Qin still didn't understand, but Qin Guang had already gotten the answer from Lioli. He and Xin Qin were indeed on Earth. But everyone in Utopia Town, including Xue Lin and the others from the task force, had been moved to a completely duplicated parallel universe. They were indeed in Utopia Town, but Utopia Town was not this Utopia Town. Instead, the punishment realm of the Holy Grail used the power of the Holy Grail on the basis of the real Utopia Town and made a complete copy. It did not only copy Utopia Town, but also the entire Mount Baylor. Those who were moved were not only the people in Utopia Town, but also everyone in the headquarters of the broken world that was hidden deep in Mount Baylor. Moreover, when everyone was moved, the Holy Grail had done everything in such a secretive manner that no one, including Wu Miaowan, noticed anything and had no idea what was going on. Sigh, this is really a huge scam. After going around for so long, I still haven't entered the real world within a cup. Qin Guang didn't want to complain anymore. Anyway, the entire universe had been merged with the world within a cup. What was so surprising about creating a copy of his mission area in another universe? Chapter 781. Qin Guang asked Azure in his heart again, all right, then stop talking nonsense. Tell me what I should do to enter the real world within a cup, which is another Wutua town. You know, I really don't have much time left. Azure coughed twice. What if I say I don't know? Will you hit me? Qin Guang silently looked at the image that Azure had conjured in his heart and smiled bitterly. Forget it, I can't beat you. It would be good to scold you, but I really can't bring myself to do so. I roughly understand the characteristics of the world within a cup this time. Just like how I thought of using water to restrain the tremor earth after falling, and then the Holy Grail immediately told me that I can use faith points to buy a pond. I'm afraid that I have to understand something in my heart first before this unlucky world of punishment will give me the corresponding hint, right? Azure snapped her fingers. Ice dog. Congratulations, you got it right. You're a smart kid. Thank you so much for your compliment. No need to thank me, you deserve it. In short, do your best. I really didn't mean to trick you, but this world of punishment is too big. Currently, I'm also powerless. According to my guess, if you can successfully break into the real world within a cup, I will probably be able to provide you with some help. But for now, you still have to rely on yourself. Qin Guang nodded silently. I understand. Do your best, do your best. You're the God Emperor, please be more reserved. I said that on behalf of dear Cry just now. All right. Azure's figure gradually faded from his mind, and Qinguang no longer counted on her. In short, heaven never bars one's way, and the trick must be around Wutua town. People can't be suffocated to death by peeing, so there must be a way. Perhaps it was a place that he had overlooked. His contemplation was interrupted by Xian Qin's panicked scream. Qinguang, what should we do now? No matter how tough Xian Qin was, she couldn't hold on this time. As she asked, she jumped up and turned around to grab Qinguang's arm, shaking it with all her might. Xiao Miao Miao sent another message. She said she's back on the bus and will depart soon. But I can't see anyone. I can't see anyone. As she spoke, she pulled Qinguang over to the 5th row that Wu Miaowan had mentioned. She pointed at the empty seat and said, "It's here. She's sitting right here." She was clearly still sending me messages. Look, she sent another photo. Isn't this the place? Wasn't this the cushion on her back? But why can't I see anyone? Have they all turned into ghosts? After all, Xian Qin was just a young girl. Perhaps she had seen more of the world than an ordinary girl. As the eldest disciple of the Thousand Despair sect, she had received the most elite education since she was young. However, when she encountered such a strange incident, and the victim was her most respected master and close childhood friend, she gradually lost control of her emotions. Enough. Stop fooling around. Qinguang suddenly reached out and grabbed Xian Qin's shoulder, shouting at her. He had to make her settle down as soon as possible. Qinguang didn't have time to waste with her. From the moment he was pulled into the punishment realm, strictly speaking, he had rushed here without stopping. During this time, he probably didn't waste a single second of his time. If he had to say that he wasted time, it was probably about 10 minutes of Xian Qin's dilly-dallying. At first, he thought that as long as he could meet up with Xuelin and the others, he would be able to bring them out safely. However, the moment he landed, he bumped into the tremor earth, which gave him a rude awakening. It wasn't easy to deal with the tremor earth, get through the first 3 stages, and rush to the small town. In the end, he realized that he hadn't even entered the punishment realm yet. Regardless of whether it was the people he wanted to rescue or deal with, they were all in the real realm within a cup. This was ridiculous. Time was running out, and he should be the one who was panicking the most. Therefore, Qinguang understood that he had to make a decision. He could either make Xian Qin settle down completely and fight alongside him, or he could make her find a safe place to hide so that she wouldn't be a burden to him. He couldn't afford to waste any more time. Xian Qin was stunned when she was suddenly shouted at by Qinguang. She stood rooted to the ground and pursed her lips tightly. She felt wronged, confused, and empty. Qinguang was about to comfort her, but she suddenly clenched her fists as if she was cheering herself on. All right, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. The situation is terrible, really terrible. I know that too. I can't explain it to you in a short time, but I hope you can calm down, okay? You have to understand that you're Xian Qin, the eldest disciple of the Thousand Despair sect. You have inner force, you're very strong. Even if your master and Wu Miaowan are in a bad situation, they're still alive, aren't they? We can even send messages to Wu Miaowan, can't we? Xian Qin nodded and rubbed her eyes. I understand. It's good that you understand. Have you heard of parallel realms? I've read about them in novels. Very well, I'll make this short. Our current relationship with Wu Miaowan is equivalent to that of parallel realms. They're in the parking lot of another Wutua town, but their Wutua town isn't our Wutua town. Do you understand? We have to find a way to find the entrance to the parallel realm they're in. Is that why little Miaowan said that her television couldn't get any signal last night? Xian Qin suddenly remembered this and raised her head to ask. Qinguang nodded. Of course. They're no longer in this world. How could they still receive the television? Xian Qin asked again, Then why can I use your phone to send her WeChat messages? Chen Guang was stunned at first, then his eyes lit up. Why was that? Wasn't this the problem he had neglected all this time? The television couldn't get any signal, but the phone could send WeChat messages. This meant that the realm in the cup constructed by the heavenly Holy Grail did not completely isolate him from the other world. Instead, it connected the two worlds through Wu Miaowan and his phone. This was the breakthrough point. The communication base station in Wu Tua town. If his guess was right, it was very likely that when the heavenly Holy Grail constructed the realm in the cup in Wu Tua town, it deliberately left this only flaw and embedded the communication base station in the middle of the two worlds. As long as he found the communication base station and thought of a way, he might be able to find the entrance. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, the unique electronic notification of the heavenly Holy Grail rang in his mind. Stage 4. Repel the attack of the Earth Ripper and protect the communication base station in Wu Tua town. The attack will begin in 15 minutes. That's right. I guessed it right. Follow me. I have a way. Chen Guang pulled Enchanting down and was about to rush down the bus when he smacked his forehead. Am I stupid? Don't I have the car keys on this bus? He started the bus with the license plate number 7H566. I'm not stupid not to use a car. As for how to use the characteristics of the base station to open the passage between the two worlds after finding it, he was not sure for the time being, but in any case, there were some signs. Let's get there first. Where are we going? Enchanting sat in the front passenger seat. Chen Guang drove the bus out of the parking lot. To the communication base station in this town. Where is the base station? Chen Guang, then here's the problem. I don't know where it is either. Wu Tua town was not small. Usually, the communication base station was built in the relatively remote suburbs, especially on the mountains. Chen Guang was completely clueless about this place. He did not have a guide now, and there were only 15 minutes before the Earth Ripper attacked. It was impossible to find the base station in such a short time. Then, when the Earth Ripper launched its attack, the hidden base station would definitely be destroyed in a matter of minutes. Thinking of this, it was really hopeless. Chen Guang slammed the steering wheel hard, and his face turned green. F***CK. After a few seconds, he suddenly came back to his senses. Wait, I have an idea. A person's potential was really scary. Chen Guang would never know his own potential until the most desperate moment. He had never thought that his brain could work so fast. He did not know, but there must be someone who did. It was Wu Miaowan, Shui Lin, and the others who were transferred to another world and could not contact the outside world, not him. His brain short-circuited just now. When he saw that they were in another world, he thought he was there too. He was now on the real Earth. He could call Baldy Uncle Jiang and ask for his opinion. Uncle Jiang. I'm in Wu Tua town at the foot of Mount Baral. Please help me check the location of the communication base station in Wu Tua town. Help me locate it. Don't ask me why I'm here. Time is tight, I don't have time to explain. Okay, got it. Thank you. After waiting for 4 to 5 minutes, Chen Guang received the coordinates sent by Jiang Yuanchao. He tapped on the map on his phone, turned on the navigation, and drove out. Thank goodness for the smartphone, sometimes it was really useful. Lu Fei curled up in the hotel room with a pale face. She did not know what was going on. When she woke up, the people around her were all gone. The 30-odd people who came with her to Wu Tua town for an inspection were all gone. She could not get through to them on the phone, no matter how hard she tried. That was not the scariest thing. The scariest thing was that the whole town had become empty. Wu Tua town, which was as prosperous as a big city last night, became a ghost town overnight. In such a big hotel, there was no one in the lobby, the kitchen, the dining room, and even the cashier. The drawers of the cashier were still open, and the red banknotes were neatly arranged there. Lu Fei also went to the streets to take a look. She even barged into an empty house nearby that was not closed and took a look. Then, she quickly returned to her hotel room. This was too scary, too strange. Wutua town, which had a population of at least tens of thousands, really became a ghost town overnight. She was scared out of her wits. She thought of finding a car to leave this godforsaken place, but in the end, she changed her mind. She chose to return to her hotel room, lock the door tightly, and move a cabinet to block the door. She did not know what was wrong with her. She felt that this might be the end of the world. She often watched American dramas and had just watched Train to Busan not long ago. She even unconsciously imagined that after she drove out of the town, she would suddenly find that the entire town had turned into zombies, baring their fangs and claws, and pouncing on her with saliva dripping from their mouths. A mere car could not give her any sense of security at all. Fortunately, she was pleasantly surprised to find that she could actually get through to her home phone. After she received a notification from her father that he would immediately send a helicopter from a nearby city to pick her up, she felt a little more at ease. But hiding in the room alone, her heart still pounded. She really did not understand. She had just come out for a good inspection. How could she encounter such a strange thing? Where did they all go? At this moment, the roar of a car engine came from afar, and then quickly approached. There was a car. There was someone. Lu Fei stood up straight and rushed to the window of the room. She turned her head to look at the source of the sound. At the intersection of the street corner, a bus suddenly rushed out from the side. It made a beautiful half-circle, then continued to sprint forward, getting closer and closer to her hotel. This bus was actually drifting. And it was drifting too frighteningly fast. The distance between the rear of the bus and the houses at the edge of the road was probably no more than 2 fingers. Who was driving this bus? Was there actually anyone else in this town? Chapter 782. In addition, apart from Chen Guang, who else can drive like this bus driver? Chen Guang's driving skills are too representative, the feeling of wandering on the edge of the extreme, others simply can't copy, and it's impossible to imitate. Even though they were drifting a cumbersome bus with poor maneuverability, it was a testament to the driver's superb driving skills. Lu Fei's breathing gradually became rapid, with her understanding of Chen Guang and the skill of racing. The driver must be Chen Guang. Don't think about the second person. The driving skills shown by this bus drift are so familiar, as if awakening the dust-laden memory in the bottom of her heart for a month or two. Memories flooded her mind like a tide, filling her heart in an instant. It hasn't been a long time since Lu Fei and Chen Guang met. But perhaps it was because she was too engrossed in her family's business, while Chen Guang was also extremely busy. The two of them didn't contact each other much. Although in her heart, Chen Guang was still that domineering and handsome god of racing, and he had even become more outstanding and dazzling, to the point that even she, as the successor of the Lu conglomerate chemicals, felt that his radiance was too dazzling. But the feelings between people are like this, after a long time without contact, will slowly fade. Lu Fei and Chen Guang haven't experienced too many unforgettable things together. She also helped Chen Guang a lot when he was down, but in her eyes, those are not worth mentioning small favors. Today, Lu Fei still admires his driving skills, but from time to time, Lu Fei also thinks, I really care about him, but does he also care about me? In a sense, Lu Fei is actually a very complicated person, with a strong two-sided personality. When she was addicted to racing, she seemed a little childish, even can be said to be a chinibu. To put it bluntly, she is a retard, otherwise, she would not become one of Chen Guang's fanatical fans. But now, as she grows older, especially after choosing to return to the family business, people always have to grow up, she also has to say goodbye to her past self. In the company, she was a swift and decisive businesswoman who could be called a genius. At home, she no longer dressed up like a maverick and deliberately showed how arrogant she was in front of the elders. Instead, she could happily discuss company matters with the elders and always put forward useful suggestions of her own. But she would not forget Chen Guang so easily. Now she just wore a mask out of habit, but it did not mean that she had completely thrown away the crazy factor of a racing girl deep in her heart. She just hid it slowly. From time to time, Lu Fei would see the news about Chen Guang on TV, and she felt happy for him from the bottom of her heart. Unlike many people who thought that Chen Guang's success so far relied on luck, Lu Fei, who knew Chen Guang when he was down and out, especially understood that his success might really have a component of luck, but it was not the main reason at all. What really made him, in just a few months, from a penniless poor student to the current #1 domestic internet celebrity, the chairman of Tianguang Agency, the strongest original content creator in China, the guarantee of the ratings of all TV stations, the big hero who saved the plane crash, and the omnipotent and invincible omnipotent Superman, was his unparalleled talent and courage to go all out no matter what he did. Lu Fei could never forget the heroic appearance of Chen Guang driving the modified GTR on the Hong Kong Mid-Mountain racetrack. It was so arrogant and so fascinating. Even if it was only occasionally in the middle of the night, it could still make her excited and her heart beat faster. But this did not mean that she could still take the initiative to approach Chen Guang as before. She was busy with her work, and Chen Guang was not idle either. Lu Fei could refuse the blind dates required by her family, and she could ignore those childs who tried to approach her through their fathers. In this regard, the Dechuan Lu family gave her the greatest freedom, but she could not shirk the responsibility on her shoulders. Only she, the most legitimate heir of the Lu's chemical industry group, which was worth tens of billions of yuan, must shoulder her own responsibility. She had been free and undisciplined for many years. No matter whether she had played enough or not, she had to stop. Like many other rich second generations with the same fate, after enjoying elite education and a few years of unimaginable undisciplined life for ordinary people, she finally had to rein in her mind and return to the position she should return to. Everyone had their own life, and also their own life. Both Lu Fei and Chen Guang had to face their own different lives. The two had agreed to let Chen Guang be an intern in her company, and she could also enjoy the addiction of being a little sweetheart. This idea had also become empty talk because of Chen Guang's rapid growth and Lu Fei herself being too busy. She understood more clearly that Chen Guang no longer needed her. According to the current state of the two, it was almost inevitable that they would gradually forget each other. According to the original idea of Lu Fei, she did not have to think about marriage now, so she was willing to accompany Chen Guang to be crazy, even if it was really crazy, it did not matter. Then when she had played enough, they would slowly fade the relationship and go to live their own lives. It was not a big deal. However, many things couldn't keep up with the changes. Chen Guang's rise was too swift, to the point that Lu Fei would occasionally feel that he might not need her anymore. Perhaps she wasn't important in his heart, and he didn't seem to lack women around him. She wasn't indispensable. Otherwise, he would not have taken the initiative to find her for so long, right? Maybe he did it on purpose? It was not bad to stand slowly and look at him from afar. There was no psychological burden, and they did not have to worry about each other's matters. They still had to be friends. Maybe one day in the future, the two would meet in a high-end social occasion and then greet each other politely. Perhaps their respective minds would still recall the madness and debauchery in the GTR when they were in Xiangjiang, but they would stop being polite to each other, appearing strange and familiar at the same time. There was no need to deliberately alienate each other. Everyone's time and energy were limited, and people's memories would be washed layer by layer like the sand on the beach, leaving new imprints and covering the past. But Lu Fei did not expect that she would encounter such an incredible thing in an incredible place like Wutua town. What was even more incredible was that Chen Guang also happened to be here, and it seemed that she and he were the only two living people in the entire town. This was simply absurd. The bus was not far from the hotel, about 70 to 80 meters away. It was whistling as it rushed over, and it would pass the hotel in a few seconds. Lu Fei only hesitated for a second before she suddenly turned around and tore off the tablecloth on the coffee table beside her. She raised her hand and violently waved the tablecloth at the window like a flag. Then, she watched the bus get closer and closer. When the bus slowly got closer, she clearly saw the familiar man sitting in the driver's seat from afar. Once again, she was sure of her judgment and finally shouted, "Here. Qin Guang. I'm here." As a god of racing, it was a basic skill to be observant and alert when driving. Although Lu Fei waved the tablecloth at the window in a hurry, Qin Guang still saw it immediately. At first, he thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him. After deliberately slowing down a little, he narrowed his eyes and looked at the window on the fourth floor in front of him, then rubbed his eyes again. What the F***ck, who did I see? I need a doctor. I'm either hallucinating or having presbyopia, right? Sister Lu Fei. Why is she here? It can't be such a coincidence, right? She was dragged into this too. What is she doing here? That's impossible. There's no reason for that. She has nothing to do with the shattered world. Why the F***ck would she appear in Wutua town at such a bad time? Also, hasn't the entire Wutua town been emptied of people? Even if Sister Lu Fei is really in Wutua town, she should be in the real punishment realm, right? I don't believe it. This must be a trap set by the heavenly Holy Grail. That's right, this must be a special checkpoint of the punishment realm. It's creating an illusion in my mind to seduce me and waste my time. Humph. I'm not going to fall for it. Of course, Enchanting also saw Lu Fei. Her eyesight was not bad. Hey, that beautiful lady looks familiar. Isn't that the beautiful lady with the surname Lu that we met at the club last time? When you wanted to deal with that paparazzi company, you met that big boss called Lu Chao once. Enchanting did not seem to remember Lu Fei's name, but she remembered Lu Fei's face. After all, there were not many girls who were as beautiful as Lu Fei and had a good relationship with Qin Guang. As Qin Guang's intimate deputy, Enchanting had deliberately paid attention to the people around him, and Lu Fei was one of them. Seeing that they were about to pass by the house, Qin Guang heard Enchanting's words and hurriedly slammed on the brakes. Huh? You saw it too? The bus screeched to a halt outside the hotel's entrance. Enchanting, who was almost flung out by the sudden braking, glared at him. Nonsense, I'm not blind. How can I not see such a big person? At this moment, Qin Guang was speechless. Then here came the problem. If Enchanting could see it too, there could only be two possibilities. The first possibility was that Enchanting had also been hallucinated by the world of punishment. Alright then, how pitiful. My capable assistant was just as unreliable as I was. Her willpower was so weak that she couldn't even resist a mere hallucination. Possibility 2, this is really Sister Lu Fei. To be honest, this is even sadder than possibility 1. Please don't be real. Forget it. Anyway, the bus has stopped. I'll go down and see if it's real or not. Wait for me for 2 minutes. Qin Guang opened the door and prepared to get off. Unexpectedly, Lu Fei had already run down the stairs. Her face was flushed, and she was indescribably excited. Qin Guang. It's really you? Qin Guang hugged Lu Fei, who was pouncing toward him, into his arms. He quietly pinched her perky butt. This familiar feeling, this tight elasticity, this beautiful outline. Well, it's really Sister Lu Fei. This unique feeling can't be an illusion, nor can it be faked by a cunning enemy. Qin Guang coughed twice. Yes, that's right. It's really me. Why are you here? Lu Fei said, it can't be explained in a few words. Let's go. Let's go. Master Guang was puzzled. Why does this sentence sound so familiar? It seems like my lines have been stolen. The excitement and joy in Lu Fei's heart was not hard to understand. What she encountered today was a supernatural phenomenon. When she woke up, she found herself inexplicably trapped in a ghost town. Anyone would be scared. In such a desperate situation, she met an old acquaintance. Well, they were so familiar that they were basically lovers. Who wouldn't be overjoyed? Moreover, Lu Fei, who knew Chen Guang's driving skills well, was at least 10,000% confident that she could escape from this place in his car. She urged Chen Guang to get back into the car as she thought to herself. Is this the will of fate? Or is it fate? It can't be that he sensed that I'm in trouble here and deliberately came to save me, right? Forget it, that's not important. What's important is that I'm not so afraid when I'm with him. But Chen Guang was the one who didn't feel too good. The moment he received Lu Fei, the electronic notification of the Holy Grail rang in his mind. Hostage rescue successful. Current number of hostages rescued, 1. Current number of survivors, 55. Number of people to be rescued, 54. If the hostage death rate exceeds 40%, the mission will fail. Remaining mission time, 22 hours 41 minutes 39 seconds. Oh my god, it's for real. Sister Lu Fei is really one of the hostages. My elementary school math teacher, I'm so sorry. I should have calculated it clearly. Shui Lin's task force has a total of 54 people, so there must be an unlucky number 55. It's just that I never would have thought that this unlucky number 55 would actually be Sister Lu Fei. Sigh, either Sister Lu Fei has had 8 lifetimes of bad luck, or I have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck. Previously, I despised Enchanting as a burden, but now I've received a real burden, and I can't just ignore it. It's quite depressing to think about it. But Chen Guang didn't feel melancholy for long. As he started the car and continued to head toward the mountain where the communication base was, he thought to himself, if I stick my head out, I'll be stabbed. If I stick my head out, I'll still be stabbed. As a man, what's wrong with protecting one more person? I can still bear this bit of responsibility. When Lu Fei got into the car, she realized that there was a little girl in the car. She was shocked at first, but she quickly reacted and greeted Enchanting. She also remembered this little girl. She also knew from Lu Chao's personal bodyguard, Uncle Tai, that although this little girl looked delicate, she seemed to be an expert from a sect in the pugilistic world. Her strength and status were above Uncle Tai's. After waiting for less than 2 minutes, Lu Fei realized that the direction Chen Guang was driving in was a bit wrong. It wasn't the direction away from Wutua town. Chen Guang, are you driving the wrong way? Chapter 783. Chen Guang shook his head. No, I haven't. Lu Fei said again, but you shouldn't have taken this road to leave Utopia. You're heading to a dead end now. Enchanting suddenly snorted and said fiercely to Lu Fei, if you're going to take a car, then sit down obediently. Don't talk so much nonsense. Lu Fei was stunned and couldn't react. Chen Guang patted the control panel, indicating for Enchanting to stop. Enchanting turned her head, fuming, and cursed in her heart. This stinky director, his brain works when he sees a beauty. Look at the situation now. Even if you have 100 mouths, you won't be able to explain it to others. My own mind is a mess now, so how can you explain it to an ordinary person? Besides, didn't I just cook rice for you? You don't even know how to be gentle when talking to me, but you're gentle when talking to Sister Lu Fei? Stinky director. Eating from the bowl and looking at the pot, thinking about the butcher's chopping board. Who knows, you might even be thinking about the piglets in the pig farm. Sooner or later, you'll eat sh*t. Chen Guang felt the rising resentment from Enchanting and felt quite awkward. He coughed twice. Sister Lu Fei, when things settle down, I'll explain it to you slowly. But right now, we can't leave Utopia. We're going to Utopia's communication base. I have to do something there. He really wasn't joking. Just now, he had thought of finding another car for Lu Fei and letting her drive out of Utopia by herself. But just as this thought emerged in his heart, Lu Li ruthlessly suppressed it. The reason was very simple. Now that Lu Fei had met up with him, she was indeed one of the hostages that had been successfully rescued. However, before the whole thing was over, the influence of the punishment realm on Utopia would not disappear. If she, the hostage, left the mission area first, she would definitely die a violent death. Lu Fei asked, "Communication base? Why are you looking for the base for?" Qin Guang shook his head. "Sister Lu Fei, I can't explain it to you clearly, but if we don't go, we'll all die. It's hard for me to explain the reason to you. It's just like how all the people in Utopia disappeared into thin air. It's very unbelievable. In short, don't use the traditional view of life to look at this matter. But don't worry, no matter what, even if I die here, I will definitely bring all of you out safely. Don't jinx it." Lu Fei and Xian Qin said in unison. The two of them were suddenly on the same side again. However, Qin Guang did not joke around with them like he did in the past. Instead, he looked at the distant sky with a solemn expression. That was the mountain with the signal tower and communication base. He could vaguely sense that there was an extremely dense power of the Holy Grail circling around the mountaintop. It was continuously condensing, and it was even more intense than when the great earthquake tremor descended out of nowhere. As long as it was in the world in the cup, death was not something that was unimaginable. He was almost used to it. Lu, and Guang. Lu. Ti Sei. Ti Lu, and Fei, and Ti Gu Lu, and Lu, and Lut, Lu Fei. After listening to Xian Qin's explanation, Lu Fei was shocked. That is to say, we are now involved in a supernatural disaster that can destroy human beings? Xian Qin rolled her eyes. In a sense, yes. I can't explain it clearly, but my master, friends, and colleagues are in another Wutua town at this time. We have to rescue them. As for the rest, we have to ask him. This damn ungrateful director has been hiding things from us, refusing to tell us the truth. Qin Guang rolled his eyes. How is this not telling the truth? The situation is too complicated. I can't explain it clearly at all. If you want me to explain it to you, you have to call Hawking. First, you have to learn a brief history of time. Then, you can go to a theological college. Finally, you can come to me to get a doctorate in theology. That should be enough. Once again, it was the metaphysical deception technique. The divine art of deception was just that useful. Both of them were stunned. Not good. I called my dad and asked him to send a helicopter. Nothing will happen, right? Seeing that they were about to reach the foot of the mountain where the base station was, Lu Fei suddenly screamed. Just as she was thinking about this, her cell phone rang again. She picked it up. After chatting for a while, she hung up the phone with a blank look on her face. Then, she stared blankly at Qin Guang and Xian Qin. What did your dad say? Qin Guang asked. Lu Fei scratched her head. He asked me when I would take people to the manganese titanium mine here for an inspection. This is my job in Utopia, but he doesn't remember me asking for help at all. Qin Guang shrugged. Everything is as I expected. He looked like he had everything under control, but his heart was aching. He quickly asked Lu Li for advice. Madam Lu Li. Why is that? Lu Li snorted coldly. You still want to ask for help? How can you treat the punishment realm like this? Tell her not to tell anyone about what happened here. Otherwise, her father's brain will be messed up by the power of fate a few more times. Do you believe that a living person will turn into an idiot? Then why didn't you stop me when I called Uncle Jiang just now? You just asked something. It's not a big deal. You didn't call anyone over. That's true. Lu Fei's mind was still in a daze until she got out of the car. Her father was not an old fool. It had only been 10 minutes since she asked for help. How could he have forgotten about it? Qin Guang felt that it was too troublesome to explain. There were only 5 or 6 minutes left before the Earth Ripper attacked. The group was still at the foot of the mountain. Even if they ran at their fastest speed to the top of the mountain, it would still take more than 10 minutes. He was anxious. Enchanting had almost recovered, but Lu Fei was an ordinary person after all. Although she didn't lack exercise, she still seemed slow in such a race against time. As Chen Guang carried Lu Fei on his back, he ran up the mountain and said, "I've already said that this is a supernatural phenomenon. We can't contact the outside world right now, and it's useless even if we do. It's not a bad thing that your father can't remember what happened here, so don't try to call him again. Otherwise, you will kill him." Lu Fei shrunk her neck. "Really? Of course. Do I look like I'm joking?" Chen Guang could sense the restless power of the Holy Grail in front of him more and more clearly. He even had a feeling that if he could rush to the place where the power of the Holy Grail was the most concentrated, he might even be able to witness the birth of the Earth Ripper. To be honest, he was a little curious, so he sped up a little. The three of them were just about to go up the mountain. The communication base was at the top of the mountain, but the core area of the restless power of the Holy Grail was halfway up the mountain. If they could make it in time, it would be best to appear at the place where the Earth Ripper was born before it was born. Now that they had no faith in stock, they could no longer exchange the Holy Grail for the pawn to deal with the Earth Ripper. Moreover, their mission this time was to protect the base station. It might not follow them, so it was unrealistic to lure it to the pond. They would probably have to fight it head-on. If they could witness the birth process of the Earth Ripper with their own eyes, they might be able to gather more information and have more tricks to deal with this elemental creature. Although Lu Fei was a little embarrassed to be carried by Chen Guang, she saw that Chen Guang and Enchanting were going up the mountain faster than she imagined. If she insisted on running down, she might cause everyone to slow down. Therefore, she did not say much and obediently lay on Chen Guang's back. As they ran, Enchanting's expression suddenly changed. She stretched out her hand to stop Chen Guang, who was next to her. "Be careful. There's something up ahead." Chen Guang looked at the strange spiraling wind less than 50 meters ahead. "Actually, I've already seen it. It's so big, I'm not blind." The spiraling wind was extremely strange. It was not large, only about 3 meters tall. However, it neither spread nor disappeared. Instead, it constantly roared and spun crazily in place. Accompanied by the constant rotation of the wind, the nearby sand and dust were slowly sucked into it. Inside, a pale yellow figure loomed. Just as Chen Guang expected, this was the birth process of the Earth Ripper. Lu Fei was not mentally prepared for it. She subconsciously tightened her grip on Chen Guang's neck. What the hell is this?" Chen Guang silently put Lu Fei down. "The Earth Ripper." Enchanting turned her head and glanced at him. This unreliable director knew the name of this damn thing. "If you knew, you should have said it earlier, Sir Director." Chen Guang shook his head. "It's useless even if I said it. You can't deal with it." "How do you know?" "My previous performance was just an accident, okay? Don't look down on me." Enchanting felt embarrassed and snorted. Without thinking, she picked up 2 hard stones from the ground and shook her wrists fiercely. The 2 stones flew towards the center of the whirlwind at the same time with a whistling sound. However, it was of no use. After the stone was thrown in, it did not penetrate the whirlwind, nor did it destroy it in the slightest. Instead, it was directly sucked in by the stones and sand that were already in the whirlwind and quickly fused with it. Not only did Enchanting's hidden weapon attack not destroy the birth of the Earth Ripper, but it also accelerated the process. At this moment, Chen Guang asked in his heart. "Liuli, at this point, you should tell me what I should do, right? Apart from dealing with this monster, I have to do something else to use that unlucky base station to enter the real punishment realm, right?" "Chen Guang, wait a moment. Your Madame Liuli is discussing something with someone." Unexpectedly, the one who replied to him was not Liuli, but Lu Minghua. Master Guang was dumbfounded. Firstly, what do you mean by Lioli? It should be Lioli, the old man's victim. Secondly, she's discussing something with someone? She's still discussing something with someone else at this time? Wait, since when can Lioli talk to someone else other than me? Who is she talking to? This doesn't make sense. Isn't the Redeemer the only one? There's someone else other than me? Who is this other person? There's someone else who can communicate with Lioli? This doesn't make sense. Don't scare me, okay? F***CK. Could it be that I'm dead this time? So Lioli is already looking for a spare tire? Damn it, she's simply crazy, okay? She's ready to burn the bridge after crossing the river. I'm not even dead yet, and she's already ready to change the spare tire? My heart hurts so much that I can't breathe. What nonsense are you thinking about? Idiot. Lioli's voice rang in his mind. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was so angry that he almost laughed at his neurotic thinking. Speak. Who is it? The third party, oh no, the fourth one. That person and I are absolutely irreconcilable. Lioli spat. What the hell is that fourth one? How can the Redeemer be changed just because you say so? If you really die, everything will be over, okay? I don't know what kind of fortune you've accumulated over 8 lifetimes for you to pick up a soul with a mechanical heart. Get those 2 little girls to bring the Holy Grail up the mountain first and tell them to place the Holy Grail on the base station equipment. That's it? It can open the passage between the 2 worlds? Chen Guang was overjoyed. Lioli coughed lightly. It's not possible at first, but we can give it a try. However, it will take time. So, your mission is to stay here. Either kill the Earth Ripper, be killed by the Earth Ripper, or persevere until the passage is opened. Wait a minute, what the hell is a mechanical heart? Chen Guang expressed that he didn't understand at all. Lioli rolled her eyes at him again. I can't be bothered to explain it to you. Just do as I say. You don't have much time to dawdle. She was shocked by Chen Guang's heaven-defying luck. The mechanical heart was a special soul that could not be born out of countless gods, yet Chen Guang was able to collect one while lying down on earth. That was not all. In the beginning, Lioli treated Nicosia's soul as a precious collection, but she didn't expect that the mechanical heart formed from the soul of a mere mortal would have such a miraculous effect in the punishment realm. It could save lives. What kind of terrifying dog luck was this? Originally, according to her estimates, Chen Guang would at least need to kill the Earth Ripper first, then kill the Earth Ripper, and then the Earth Ruler, the Earth XX, and so on. It wasn't until he had collected the entire Earth set that he could gather the power of the Earth set to fully activate the communication base station and successfully connect the 2 worlds. However, the Earth set was not child's play. The further he went, the stronger the opponents he would face would be. One wrong step and he would be sent to heaven. In fact, this was also the most insane part of the punishment realm with 10 times the difficulty. Even if every time Chen Guang dealt with an Earth XX, he would be strengthened like he had absorbed the tremor's regeneration ability. However, in front of the last Earth set, the Earth Primal Chaos, it was useless. The more abilities he had, the easier it would be for the strongest Earth Primal Chaos to swallow him in one bite, because the characteristic of a Primal Chaos was to devour all Earth attributes. The more abilities he had, the sweeter the taste would be in the eyes of the Earth Primal Chaos. There was no need to explain the complete supplement. However, if Chen Guang did not absorb the ability of the Earth set appetizer, it would be impossible for him to survive until he met the Earth Primal Chaos. This was simply an unsolvable dead end. The so-called punishment realm with 10 times the difficulty was not meant for him to pass, but to die, with no chance of survival. This was the price to pay for using the power of destiny recklessly, and the punishment was even more insane. The punishment realm sent by the Bell of Destiny this time had no intention of letting him live. But just now, that Nicosia Tupult actually told her that she had a way to deal with this matter. She could use her mechanical heart to temporarily fuse with the communication base station, and then decipher and analyze the characteristics of the two worlds, further strengthening the signal, and then use an even stronger signal to completely stimulate the connection between the two worlds and open up a channel. After hearing this, Lioli was deeply convinced. Nicosia's idea was very reliable. Although the success rate was not 100%, the chances were not small, and it was worth a try. As long as she could fuse the mechanical heart with the communication base equipment, and really use her brain to figure out the characteristics of the two worlds, the possibility of this matter was extremely high. Even if it failed, it did not matter. Anyway, she could just leave Qinguang here to eat the earth set. If it was a blessing, it would not be a curse, and if it was a curse, he could not avoid it. If it was done, everyone would be happy, and they could successfully bypass the earth primal chaos, which was impossible to deal with, and find a chance of survival in this certain death situation. If the matter was not done, then the earth set would ascend on the spot. Anyway, there was such a calamity in life. Lioli did not tell this most desperate situation to Qinguang, because it would be useless even if she did. Chapter 784. Enchanting frowned and said, "What should we do now? Do we just go around this thing?" The hidden weapon that she was most proud of was useless. Enchanting subconsciously grabbed Qinguang's arm and looked solemnly at the whirlwind that was spinning more and more violently. Lu Fei was even more shocked. Her whole body froze on the spot. She was so frightened that she couldn't move. If it wasn't for Qinguang supporting her, she would have directly slid to the ground. At the very least, Enchanting had seen the Earthshaker with her own eyes and had developed a certain level of resistance to this supernatural phenomenon. This was Lu Fei's first time seeing it. As a normal person, this was far beyond her outlook on life and the world. This. Qinguang. What is this situation? What is the Earth Ripper? Lu Fei finally couldn't control herself. She screamed and held on to Qinguang's arm from the other side. This pincer attack from the left and right came so suddenly that it caught everyone off guard. Enchanting was still fine. After all, she was only holding onto Qinguang's hand. His fingertips were also rubbing against the little Loli's waist. However, it wasn't the same for Lu Fei. She was so nervous that she even pinned Qinguang's arm between her breasts. It had to be said, Lu Fei was indeed worthy of being the hot-tempered goddess of the 5 capitals. This fullness, this elasticity, this amount of breasts, damn. What kind of situation is this, and I can still be distracted? If I was a soldier in my previous life, I would have definitely fallen asleep on the battlefield. I'm almost convinced of myself. Qinguang, who was being attacked from both sides by the 2 women, knew that it was not good. How could he be distracted at this critical moment? He activated his righteous heart and broke free from the 2 women's restraint. He patted his head to wake himself up as soon as possible. Calm down. Both of you calm down. It's not troublesome. Both of you take my bag and go up the mountain. Do you see that signal tower? The communication base station is just below the signal tower. When you guys get up there, take out the water cup from my bag. That's right, it's the cup that I use to drink water every day. Put it on the equipment in the communication base station. He turned around, took off the satchel from his waist, and put it in Enchanting's hand. Enchanting was at a loss. And then? Qinguang didn't answer Enchanting. Instead, he turned around and grabbed Lu Fei's shoulder. He stared at her and said, "Look into my eyes, Sister Lu Fei." Lu Fei slowly stopped trembling. She followed Qinguang's instructions and looked him straight in the eyes. Qinguang stared at her and said word by word, "Very well, that's it. Sister Lu Fei, you have to understand that you have been involved. Although I swear to protect your safety, you have to pull yourself together. Sister Lu Fei, you are not an ordinary woman, you are Lu Fei. You are Lu Fei from Dechuan province. You are my respected and knowledgeable sister Lu Fei. You are the heir of Lu Chemical, a strong woman in the business world. You have a big heart. Lu Fei listened to Qin Guang's words, and the confusion in her eyes gradually disappeared. Yes, that's right, I am Lu Fei. I have a big heart. That's right. Get rid of all your distracting thoughts. Treat all the unreasonable things you see in front of you as a trivial matter like eating and drinking, the sun rising and setting. You who have a big heart must be calm in the face of everything. Do you understand? Lu Fei nodded heavily. Understood. It's good that you understand. Now. Immediately. Immediately. You two do as I say. Don't hesitate or doubt. Go up the mountain. As for this strange thing, I'll take care of it. After Qin Guang finished, he pushed the two of them hard. Qin Guang's brainwashing was obviously very successful. Lu Fei did not hesitate to turn around and go straight up the mountain. She understood that now was not the time to be afraid. There was no point in being afraid. Enchanting hesitated a little and followed Lu Fei. She turned back and asked worriedly, "Chief, what about you?" Qin Guang waved his hand. "Didn't I tell you? Just do as I say. After putting the cup on the mountain, wait for me on the mountain. I'll deal with the Earth Ripper. Please don't overestimate yourself and drag me down." Enchanting's expression stiffened. She did not agree with what Qin Guang said. "I am the great senior sister of the Thousand Despair sect. I can fight better than you. Why would I drag you down?" However, the stone she threw just now clearly did not pose any threat to the strange existence that was constantly brewing in the whirlwind. Previously at the Huang Guoshu, it was indeed Qin Guang who lured the Earth Ripper away and destroyed it. Although she did not know what method he used, he might be right. She could not deal with these monsters, but he had a way. The two of them took a detour and went straight up the mountain through the forest path. Qin Guang took slow but firm steps towards the spiral gust. As time passed, the whirlwind's rotation speed became faster and faster. However, its volume began to slowly decrease. The originally vague human silhouette in the center also became clearer. Qin Guang moved sideways and blocked the spiral gust straight line to the mountain top. His breathing gradually became faster and his eyes became more focused. In his heart, the heavenly Holy Grail's notification sounded. Due to external assistance, the Earth Ripper's attack time has been advanced by 30 seconds. Countdown begins. Qin Guang silently counted the time in his heart. Almost 15 minutes had passed. Should I start the countdown from 10? No problem, I've already mentally prepared myself. What kind of posture should I use to welcome this unlucky Earth Ripper? 3, 2, 1. Damn, it seems like your countdown is 3, 2, 1. And why is your countdown so much faster than normal? Before Qin Guang could finish his thought, the spiral gust had already exploded without warning. The power of the heavenly Holy Grail that had been scattered in the surroundings and had not yet been absorbed by the whirlwind was not shaken away by the explosion of the whirlwind. Instead, it abruptly gathered towards the original location of the whirlwind. The billowing smoke and dust dispersed, revealing a 2-meter-tall humanoid monster that slowly emerged. Unlike the Earth Ripper, which was composed entirely of orange rocks, this Earth Ripper's body was dark cyan. Although it was 2 meters tall, it was not thick. On the contrary, its limbs were extremely slender. It had a triangular head, which was bald and had no eyes, nostrils, or mouth. Its 2 forelimbs were different from a normal person's arms. They looked somewhat like the blade-like arms of a praying mantis, full of barbs. Under the illumination of the sun, they glinted with a faint cold light, undoubtedly revealing the sharpness of these blade-like arms. Qin Guang silently gave this Earth Ripper a 9 out of 10. As expected, it lived up to its name. One look and you can tell that it's really good at cutting. The Earth Ripper's triangular head first turned slightly towards Qin Guang, as if sizing up its prey. Then, it raised its neck and pointed its triangular awl at the mountain peak, probably to determine its attack route. After that, it slowly moved, and very casually waved its blade-like arms. An extremely frightening whooshing sound could be heard from where its blade-like arms rubbed against the air, sharp and ear-piercing. Lord Light silently expressed that if anyone were to tell me that the dark cyan rocks that make up this Earth Ripper are just ordinary stuff, I'll definitely hang them on a tree and hack them to death. Forget it, I'm the dignified lord of the 3,000 worlds. I'm not a good-for-nothing. Come on. Let's fight to our heart's content. Lady Azure. Can I buy some life-saving items from the Holy Grail on credit? I'll slowly pay back my faith later. This thing is so scary. Azure ignored him. It was either because the shop didn't accept credit, or because the Holy Grail had been taken away and she couldn't help him. In short, whether he was stubborn or not, he had to bite the bullet. Chapter 785. How am I supposed to win against it? Chen Guang began to cautiously circle around the Earth Ripper, taking small steps. His eyes were especially cautious, and his gaze was focused. Humph. I don't believe that with the old man's abilities, he can't deal with a mere rock golem. Don't be fooled by how scary it looks, it definitely has a weakness. It's a pity that I didn't find a pond on the way up. Otherwise, if I just lured this guy to a pond, it would definitely be over in a matter of minutes. That's not right. The Earth Ripper seems to be different from the Earthshaker. The color of its body looks more like granite than ordinary rock. It's also not like the Earthshaker, where soil and stones constantly fall off its body and are then reattached to it. It seems like this thing won't have any problems even if it's soaked in a mud pond. That would be a headache for them. Just as Chen Guang was racking his brains to no avail, the Earth Ripper seemed to have adapted to its new body. It suddenly bowed, and a buzzing sound came from its granite-like body. In the next instant, it had already crossed a distance of tens of meters and appeared in front of Chen Guang as if it had teleported. The arm of the blade, which was almost the same length as the Earth Ripper's body, drew an arc in the air and slashed towards Chen Guang. The friction between the blade and the air produced a deafening buzzing sound. If he was cut by this blade, what awaited Chen Guang was only one outcome, being cut into two at the waist. So fast. According to Chen Guang's judgment, the absolute speed of the Earth Ripper when it sprinted was definitely more than 30 meters per second. It was 3 times faster than the human world record, and not much inferior to a cheetah. However, this damn thing's body was not made of carbohydrates, but solid rock. Fortunately, the old man was not someone to be trifled with. You want to kill me with a mere blade? Dream on. Old man Guang decisively dodged and fell backward. The blade whistled past the tip of his nose, but only a few strands were cut off. All right, he had no hair. In short, it was so damn fast. After dodging the ambush, Chen Guang exerted strength in his legs and bounced off the ground, shooting several meters away and escaping from Ripper's attack range. At the same time, cold sweat dripped down from his temples. This Ripper was even stronger than the Tremblers. Here it comes again. He was still lying on the ground, and before he could regain his footing, the Ripper had already appeared in front of him. Its 2 blade-like arms slashed down vertically from above. I'll scram. Old Master Guang flipped his body on the ground. A deafening sound rang out, and countless tiny gravel and sand splashed onto Chen Guang's body and face, causing him to bruise. Damn it, damn it, damn it. This guy was too ferocious. The old man was no match for him. Forget it, I won't sweat anymore. It's almost dry. At this moment, he was stuck between the 2 blade-like arms. Looking left and right, the 2 sharp blades were less than a centimeter away from him, deeply embedded in the ground. His 2 legs kicked the ground, and he darted forward 2 to 3 meters like a snake. Taking advantage of the fact that the Earth Ripper had yet to pull its blade-like arms out of the ground, he could finally stand up straight. With 2 crisp clangs, the Earth Ripper finally pulled out its two blade-like arms and held them horizontally in front of its body. Taking advantage of this gap, Chen Guang panted heavily, desperately trying to think of a way out. He was in a difficult situation. It hadn't even been 10 seconds since the fight started, and he was already in such a miserable state. His face was covered in dirt, and his life was in danger at any moment. This crazy Earth Ripper had no flaws at all. It was not afraid of water, its movements were swift and fierce, and its blade-like arms were so sharp that they could cut through iron like mud. It was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. In the game, he was basically a smurf account that he had just created, and this Earth Ripper was an elite monster in the high-level area. He had to be at least level 10 or so to find a few people to team up with. There was no solution at all. The disparity in strength between the two sides was too great. His side had millet and rifle, while the enemy had level 59. In fact, at this time, Chen Guang's best choice was to ignore everything, turn around, and escape to a place where he could create a geographical advantage, just like he had escaped countless times before. But now was different from the past. He couldn't escape every time. This time, he couldn't escape, so he could only fight. Chen Guang was well aware of this, but judging from the current situation, he knew that he had no chance of winning. What should I do? While he was thinking hard, the Earth Ripper fiercely moved again. Its speed didn't slow down at all, like a sophisticated robot. First, it bent its arms slightly, then placed the two blade-like arms in front of it, forming an X shape. After a short period of silence, the Earth Ripper's two legs made a buzzing sound like an electric motor. It should be accumulating power. Chen Guang retreated a little bit while remaining vigilant. The Earth Ripper was about to make a big move. In fact, if there was a way, Chen Guang also wanted to take the initiative to attack. But until now, he hadn't been able to find any shortcomings of the Earth Ripper. It was like a cow trying to bite a pumpkin. The next moment, the Earth Ripper moved fiercely, faster than before, and shot towards Chen Guang like a cannonball. At the same time, its two blade-like arms opened at the same time and slashed an X shape, slashing straight at Chen Guang. Chen Guang's hair stood on end. He knew that there was no way to retreat this time, and there was no way to avoid it. Damn it, I'm going all out. If a tiger doesn't show its might, you'll really think I'm a sick cat. Although his absolute speed was completely suppressed by the Earth Ripper, if it was just his arms and eyesight, he could still keep up with the Earth Ripper's rhythm. Instead of retreating, he pressed down on his neck and took a step forward. His whole body was in the middle of the Earth Ripper's two blades. Both of his fists burst upwards at the same time, giving him a burst of chi. Unexpectedly, both of his fists landed on the Earth Ripper's blades. Humph. Break for me. Chen Guang had always been very confident in his Qilin arms. Although the Earth Ripper is known as an elemental creature, its body is only made of stone. I can still break it. Brother, I was wrong. Let's talk it over. 2 seconds later, he exploded on the spot. His Qilin arms, which had always been invincible in the past, had actually suffered a loss against the Earth Ripper. His bones were almost shattered, but this broken thing's blades were actually unscathed. Although Chen Guang wasn't hit, the Earth Ripper took advantage of the situation and kneed him in the chest, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood and fly backwards. I say, you're really too much. You can hit anywhere on its body, but you just had to hit its blades. Do you think other people rely on these blades to make a living? This is the specialty of other people, okay? Aren't you looking down on people too much? Liuli's voice finally came from the bottom of his heart, like the sound of nature. Savior. You've finally appeared. Quickly give me a wonderful plan. Didn't I give you the 4-word mantra before? Screw your 4-word mantra. Give me a reliable one. No, I can't help you. Please continue to pray for your own good. I have a little idea, but the transcending Holy Grail doesn't allow me to tell you. I can't do anything about it. This is the rule, and it can't be violated. Chen Guang's eyes lit up. Lioli didn't seem to say anything, but in fact, she had already revealed a very important message. This message was that the Earth Ripper was not invulnerable. Well, thinking about it carefully, it didn't seem to be of much use. He gritted his teeth and stood up again with the support of the tree behind him. The Earth Ripper, which seemed to never tire, pounced on him again. Thanks to the super regenerative ability of the lemon-flavored fruit candy, the injury from the knee strike had miraculously healed after a short period of recovery. To an ordinary person, this was a serious injury that would make them write their wills. Old Lord Guang twisted his neck and barely dodged the Ripper's slash. A smooth and clean cross-section of the huge tree behind him was sliced open, and the entire tree slid down to the ground. But this wasn't the end. The Ripper had clearly grasped a rather exquisite saber technique. After slicing the tree, its other saber arm swiped diagonally upwards. Helpless, Qin Guang could only stretch out his hands to grab the blade. Then, his entire body was lifted up by the Rippers and his arms, and he was flung away. With a swish, the blade slashed across, and 2 bone-deep wounds appeared on his palms. His palms were nearly sliced off. Qin Guang couldn't even be bothered to cry out in pain. He would recover very quickly anyway. On the other side, after the Ripper sent him flying, it didn't choose to chase after him. Instead, it turned to look at the mountain top. Not good. It wants to shake me off and go straight up the mountain. Although Xianqin wasn't weak, she was proficient in subtle moves like hidden weapons or movement techniques. She was no match for the Earth Ripper and was naturally countered. Needless to say, Lu Fei couldn't even be considered a human target. Given the Earth Ripper's strength, it only needed 3 slashes to destroy the communication base. He absolutely couldn't let it go up the mountain. Without thinking too much, Qin Guang turned the tables and pounced forward. The regenerative ability in his body seemed to become more effective the more he used it. This time, his recovery speed was even faster. While he was still charging, his palms that were about to be sliced off had already recovered to their original state. The Earth Ripper's triangular head finally turned back. It seemed to be a little impatient, and its arm buzzed once more. The saber arm stabbed out at an even faster speed than before. It was too fast, so fast that there was no time for anyone to react. This time, Qin Guang's chest was directly pierced and he was raised in the air. The other saber arm swung horizontally, slashing at Qin Guang's neck. Qin Guang raised his hands in front of him to protect himself. He didn't know if he could regenerate after being beheaded. He didn't dare to gamble on this. He had to protect his neck. Once again, he was sent flying. This time, it was even worse. Both of his arms were completely broken, and there was only a tiny bit of his arm bone left. Then, there was a bloody hole the size of a bowl on his chest, and dark red blood flowed down with a splash. The Earth Ripper seemed to be a creature with feelings. It rubbed its 2 saber arms on the trunk of the tree beside it in disgust, then turned around, intending to go straight up the mountain. Stop right there. Qin Guang appeared in front of it again, blocking its way. At this time, his clothes had long been torn to pieces, but there wasn't the slightest wound on his body. Qin Guang was also shocked. Just now, stuffing the Earth Ripper into the pool of faith points was simply a stroke of genius. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to deal with the Earth Ripper. This regenerative ability was simply invincible. In a sense, the Earth Ripper was not inferior to the Earth Ripper. Woo! The Earth Ripper was infuriated. Yo, so you can talk. I met your kind earlier, and now I've eaten him. Do you understand me? Qin Guang grinned. In fact, he didn't care whether the Earth Ripper could understand him or not. If he could stall for time by chattering and gain an opportunity for Azure to crack the base station, he was even willing to write a web novel for this old man, guaranteeing that he would be able to read it until the end of time. Unfortunately, the Earth Ripper seemed to be a cold-hearted player. It ignored him and silently pounced on him again. The difference in strength between the 2 sides was an objective reality. Even if Chen Guang had an almost immortal body's regenerative ability, which allowed him to quickly recover no matter how heavy his injuries were, he still couldn't cause the slightest bit of damage to his opponent. Time passed bit by bit. Although only 10 minutes had passed, in the undying god of war, no, it should be the undying sandbag, Chen Guang's heart, it felt as if 17 or 18 years had passed. He really couldn't remember how many times he had been on the verge of death. This was even more painful and unbearable than directly exploding on the spot in the world in a cup. At least in the world in a cup, his pain was weakened. But today, in this place, every injury he suffered was real, without any discount. He felt that perhaps before his body couldn't take it, his mind would collapse first. But he didn't come out empty-handed, because he finally found a flaw in this guy. How could this guy's body, which was completely made of stone, be so agile? It completely defied common sense. The key to this was the buzzing sound that came from its limbs and other important parts of its body and joints every time it moved violently. Chapter 786. Although elemental creatures were made up of rock, the difference between them and humans was that they had no muscles. Its entire body was made of rock, which was equivalent to its skeleton. But it also had joints. Before, the earth tremor's body had always been in a state of flow. Whether it was its joints or its body, they were all in a state of flow. Its torso was full of gaps, and its body was supported by the unique power of elemental creatures. Therefore, although the earth tremor's absolute speed far exceeded that of ordinary people, whether it was Chen Guang or Enchanting, they could more or less suppress it in speed. Compared to its kind, the Earth Ripper, the tremor was much more cumbersome. Its body was sometimes hard and sometimes soft, but even at its toughest, it could not be compared to the Earth Ripper. The Earth Ripper was completely different from its kind. The dark blue rock that made up its body was extremely hard. The experience with the Qilin arm told Chen Guang that the hardness of its body was definitely far above ordinary steel, and it also had a certain degree of flexibility. It was simply perfect. But the flexibility of its rock body was not enough to support its intense and flexible movements, so its joints must be flexible. In the beginning, Chen Guang didn't notice it, but every time the Terra Ripper attacked, there would be a strange buzzing sound coming from its joints. Initially, he didn't pay much attention to it, but he gradually shifted his attention to it. After enduring countless slashes, Chen Guang's gaze was fixed on the joints of the Terra Ripper. After paying a painful price, Chen Guang finally confirmed his judgment. Although the other parts of the Terra Ripper's body were tough, its joints weren't indestructible. On the contrary, they felt like a gel that would compress, twist, and wrinkle along with its movements. It was similar to a human's joints, but there were also some differences. Human joints usually required tendons, bones, muscles, and other components to work together to achieve the purpose of movement. But the Earth Ripper's torso and limbs were made of a whole rock substance, without the traction of tendons, bones, and muscles. It was also not like the tremor, whose whole body was in a fluid state under the blessing of a mysterious power. The Earth Ripper might have similar elemental power, but the main effect was certainly different from the tremor. It was not regeneration, but strengthening its body. At the same time, this also meant that almost all of its kinetic energy had to be supplied by its joints for every movement. Considering its weight and strength, the pressure on the colloid at its joints was at least several tons. Once he realized this problem, Chen Guang focused more of his attention on the Earth Ripper's joints. After a few observations, he made a new discovery. When it was preparing for a violent movement, its joints would go through a process of storing energy. The buzzing sound was produced when it was storing energy. The way it stored energy was not complicated. It was like a spring that was constantly compressed. When it was compressed to the extreme, it would shoot out with a loud bang, driving its body to make various movements. It was no wonder that this guy's absolute speed was not completely stable. Sometimes, he was just a bit faster than Chen Guang, but sometimes, he was so fast that people could not look at him directly. At first, Chen Guang thought that it was holding back, but now it seemed that was not the case. It was just that this guy's movement characteristics were like this. The energy storage time and intensity were not enough, so it naturally could not burst out with amazing power. In addition, Chen Guang speculated that, with the passage of time, although its body was still indestructible, its joints might show signs of aging due to continuous compression and release. This kind of aging was not uncommon. Things like rubber or springs would also age after a long period of high-intensity use. Soft rubber would become hard and brittle, and then crack and so on. Moreover, this aging process was often irreversible. As an elemental creature, the Earth Ripper certainly would not age irreparably. Perhaps after aging, it would be as good as new after a period of self-healing. But now, the long period of strenuous exercise had indeed brought great pressure to its joints. It did not give Chen Guang time to breathe, but Chen Guang, who was like an undying cockroach, also did not give it the slightest chance to breathe. He blocked in front of it again and again. As time passed, the buzzing sound from its limbs' joints became louder and louder. At first, it sounded like a wasp flying, but gradually it became a sound like poking a hornet's nest. Later, it even sounded like a machine cutting wood in a sawmill. Not only that, but the biggest change came from the color of the gelatin at its joints. Originally, the dark cyan joints of the Earth Ripper were in harmony with the other parts of its body, but gradually, the dark cyan joints seemed to be plated with a layer of red, gradually turning from dark cyan to dark red. The red became brighter and brighter, as if it had just condensed into a faint glow of magma. This perverted brother can't hold on any longer. The idea in Chen Guang's mind was very simple. Now that he had an incredible regenerative ability, as long as he was careful not to be killed by the Earth Ripper in one shot, he would be able to steal a little breathing room. No matter how serious the injury was, he could quickly recover. It didn't matter how embarrassing or painful it was. He just had to hold on and exhaust the Earth Ripper to death. Since the Earth Ripper's joints are showing signs of not being able to hold on, then I only have one tactic: exhaust you to death. Exhaust you to death. Sure enough, as he expected, the longer he dragged on, the more obvious the red color of the Earth Ripper's joints became, and the louder the noise before each movement became. Although its triangular head had no facial features and no expression could be seen, Chen Guang could still perceive from its shaking head from time to time that it was gradually becoming impatient. This was also good news. It proved that although elemental creatures were not humans, they also had emotional fluctuations. Most importantly, Chen Guang now had the confidence to win after knowing that it had a flaw. Although he was still in a disadvantageous position, he had found the motivation and goal to persevere. He was no longer in despair like he did in the beginning. Come on. Weakling, chop me to death. Really, you're pretending to be amazing. At best, you're just tickling me, okay? You're as weak as that great earthquake trembler. I just want to play with you. Otherwise, I can crush you to death with a finger, just like crushing an ant. Chen Guang was slashed in the thigh, and his whole body flew out diagonally, but the trash talk in his mouth did not stop for a moment. It didn't matter whether it understood or not, as long as it could feel the old man's contempt for him. Let it be angry, let it go crazy, let it lose its mind, and never let it have the idea of completely getting rid of him and going straight up the mountain. To be honest, if the Earth Ripper really did that, he might not be able to stop it. Perhaps Chen Guang's verbal attack could really cross the barriers of race and language, causing 10,000 psychological trauma to the Earth Ripper. If it didn't chop this annoying cockroach that jumped up and down in its eyes, it really wouldn't be able to swallow it. Of course, it was also possible that killing Chen Guang was within the scope of its mission, just like the main mission of Chen Guang's 3 snakes. But the problem now was that it couldn't kill Chen Guang. Chapter 787. Chen Guang, who had finally grasped the knack of the undying punching bag, had firmly implemented a strategy. Protect my head, my heart, my neck. Alright, I have to protect my pile driver as well. As for the other parts, feel free to use them. In any case, I won't die. the silent Earth Ripper let out a series of whines. It was really anxious. Finally, after blocking a horizontal slash from the Earth Ripper with both hands, Qin Guang vaguely heard a crisp cracking sound. Although the bones of his palms were also shattered by the terrible force of the knife arm, ecstasy appeared on his face. "I've finally found you." When he looked over, he saw that a fine crack had appeared on the dark red elbow joint of this fellow's right blade arm. It was the second elbow bend on the inner side of the Z-shaped blade arm that was close to the shoulder. If it were not for Qin Guang's sharp eyes, he might not have been able to see it. But under the fiery eyes of the strongest god of darts in history, even the slightest crack could not hide. No wonder he could block this knife. This idiot's joints were broken, and he did not use all his strength. Take advantage of his weakness and kill him. I can't give him a chance to heal this crack. In an instant, the clever and witty Lord Guang made a decision to turn the tables. It was time to blow the horn of a counterattack. Stamping his feet on the ground, he pounced forward. If he wanted to defeat the strong, he had to carry out the strategic policy used by the old men to the end. When the enemy advanced, he would retreat. When the enemy was strong, he would run. When the enemy was stronger, he would fight to the death. When the enemy was tired, he would be tough. When the enemy retreated, he would advance. When he rushed to the front of the Earth Ripper, he leaped into the air. Not caring that the joints of his palms were shattered, he simply stabbed his hands at the Earth Ripper like a military knife. The Earth Ripper seemed to know that it was in a bad situation. Instead of using a stronger offensive to suppress Qin Guang's assault, it actually took a step back. This was the first time Qin Guang had taken a step back since the start of the fight. This was a historic moment. This time, Qin Guang discovered another flaw. The speed at which it retreated was incomparable to the speed at which it charged forward. Looking down, Qin Guang immediately understood. The Earth Ripper was an elemental creature that compressed its joints to obtain amazing explosive power, but it had to pay a price. Its special joint structure allowed it to sprint forward at an astonishing speed. But when it wanted to retreat, the efficiency of its joints' compression and energy storage suddenly dropped. It might not be worse than an ordinary person, but its opponent, Qin Guang, was not an ordinary person either. Therefore, Qin Guang caught up with it. Qin Guang, who was in midair, stabbed his hands into the neck below the triangular head. Its neck wasn't long, but it was still in a gelatinous state. Although its neck didn't move much, and there were no signs of redness or aging, it was still more reliable than looking for its stone head. Clang! 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 Qin Guang's hands finally smashed down like hammers. It couldn't be helped. His bones were broken and he couldn't clench his fists. But it didn't matter. It was better if they were all broken. That way, he could still use the broken bones as a dagger. Let me tell you, my brother Guang doesn't talk much. He doesn't show his ruthlessness easily. When he does, even I'm afraid of myself. However, the bloody fact proved that even the seemingly soft gelatinous body had terrifying toughness. It wasn't that it was hard, but it was extremely tough. After Qin Guang's broken palm hit it, it could only make it tremble slightly at most. Qin Guang's own Qilin arm was completely shattered, and even his palm flew away. Qin Guang's broken bone stabbed it, but it still couldn't pierce through. The Earth Ripper let out another cry, as if it was feeling proud that Qin Guang's desperate attack was futile. It quickly raised its left hand and swung its blade-like arm, threatening Qin Guang's forehead. Idiot, do you really think I'm so brainless? Retracting his neck, Qin Guang lowered his body and dodged the blade in that fellow's left hand. When he landed on the ground, he stood less than half a meter away from the demonic beast's chest. The corner of his eyes drifted to the left as he stared at the second elbow of the demonic beast, which showed signs of closing. Sure enough, as I expected, once these aging joints exceed a certain limit, it will choose not to use these joints anymore. It will naturally heal itself slowly over time. But how can I let you get what you want? Take this. Eat my bone crusher hammer. In fact, there was no hammer. It was still the bone spur in his left hand. In such a short time, about 1/3 of the flesh and broken bones that had fallen to the ground had floated up and condensed into his two broken hands. But there was still a sharp thorn sticking out. With the resolute strength of the Qilin arm, he fiercely inserted the broken bone in his left hand into the crack on the Earth Ripper's joint. The broken bone accurately pierced the crack, forcibly breaking it open a little, and continued to penetrate deeper until it could no longer move an inch. Immediately, Chen Guang fiercely twisted his hand, forcibly leaving a small piece of his broken bone in the crack. After succeeding in one move, he did not continue to fight. He shrunk his neck and turned sideways, ejecting to the right, intending to avoid the Earth Ripper's knee. At the same time, he found that there was also a crack on the gelatin of the Earth Ripper's right knee. Chen Guang, who was preparing to run away, simply stopped running. He gritted his teeth again and met the knee strike head-on. The broken bone in his right hand fiercely stabbed forward, leaving a piece of broken bone in the Earth Ripper's knee. In order to be greedy, the knee strike first shattered the bones in his right hand, and then hit his chest. His whole body flew back 7 or 8 meters and hit a tree behind him. This time, he was finally seriously injured. More than half of his ribs were broken, his heart was almost ruptured, and his lungs were pierced by a number of broken bones. The word miserable was not enough to describe it. But he was smiling. Eat my arthritis. With a roar, he pounced forward without a care. Along the way, his clothes were stained with blood, and his bones were sent flying. As he strode forward, the pieces of flesh and broken fingers scattered on the ground floated up under the power of the Holy Grail, gathering towards Chen Guang like a tired bird returning to the forest. It was exactly the same as when the Earth Ripper was circulating with the earth. If there was anyone else here, they would be scared to death. This was actually the ultimate form of the Earth Ripper's supreme regenerative ability. The more serious the injury, the faster the recovery. It was completely unreasonable. By the time Chen Guang reached the Earth Ripper, his hands that had been almost completely shattered had already grown a bloody skeleton. The broken bones in the Earth Ripper's joints were gone. It didn't matter, he could still grow new ones. The ribs that had pierced into his lungs and his chest had almost all returned to their place, and his heavily injured heart was as good as new. The Earth Ripper subconsciously wanted to raise its right arm, but the buzzing sound came from its joints again. It was really about to collapse from the harassment of this flea, but it couldn't kill it no matter how hard it hit. If it weren't for the restrictions of the laws that created it, it would have turned around and fled. This guy definitely couldn't catch up to it. With a crisp cracking sound, a second crack appeared on the second crook of its right elbow, which was already cracked in the first place. This greatly reduced the strength of its blade. This time, Chen Guang dodged it more easily. The arthritis tactic really worked. Chen Guang's right hand, which had regrown flesh, clenched into a fist and punched the Earth Ripper's neck. Although it still couldn't hurt it, it staggered. He raised his leg and stepped on the gelatinous knee. Kick of the Aeolus showed its might, and the crack on the burning knee burst open again. The Earth Ripper limped back a few steps. Its instincts told it to escape, but the laws that created it forced it to move forward bravely. But how could an elemental creature violate the laws? In the end, it could only yield to the laws, even if it had to fight with its life on the line. Its triangular head was raised high, looking up at the sky, and the whistling sound of the cold wind sounded from every part of its body. An invisible strong wind surged around it, sweeping in all directions with it as the center, just like the whirlwind when it was born. An ear-piercing buzzing sound came from its body again, louder than ever before. It was like the sound of locusts swarming everywhere, making people feel like they were on the verge of collapsing. Chen Guang could clearly see that every joint on this guy's body was emitting a red light that was rapidly becoming brighter, resembling a red-hot soldering iron. It knew that if it dragged on like this, it would definitely die, so now this guy was going all out. But you're too late. I can't escape, and I can't escape either. Since it's going all out, I'm afraid its speed will at least recover to its previous strength. Then, let's see if it'll chop me into minced meat first, or if I'll forcefully exhaust its joints until they explode. Qin Guang stomped heavily on the ground with the tip of his foot. His entire body turned into a streak of blood-red light, and he suddenly pounced forward. The Earth Ripper's twin blades recovered their previous speed, swinging out countless blades of light that swept towards Qin Guang like quicksilver. Unlike the previous dodging and evading, this time Qin Guang chose to fight to his heart's content, just to exhaust this guy's joints faster. The bald figure and the dark green mantis-like Earth Ripper flickered in and out of a narrow area of a dozen meters. Loud sounds of collision could be heard from time to time. Bursts of bloody mist exploded, billowing smoke and dust filled the sky. The bloody mist and smoke mixed together, and even sunlight couldn't penetrate it. These exploding bloody mist were all caused by Qin Guang's injuries, and the flying smoke and dust were only the sand on the ground. But after the bloody mist dispersed, it didn't fall to the ground, but instead swirled in mid-air and gathered somewhere in the middle. About 15 minutes later, the sound finally stopped. Only his head, waist, and thighs still had flesh and blood left. Qin Guang stood proudly in place like a broken skeleton. In front of him, the insufferably arrogant Earth Ripper had been broken into 17 or 18 pieces scattered on the ground. Its triangular mantis-like head had been stepped on by Qin Guang's skeletal feet, and its limbs had long been broken into several pieces. Qin Guang's skeletal hands had smashed a head-sized hole in its rocky torso, and inside the hole were countless shattered dark green crystals. Qin Guang silently opened his palm, and a bright dark green crystal was stuck in the middle of his palm bone. This was what he had just pulled out from the Earth Ripper's chest. Countless broken bones and flesh floated up from the ground within a dozen meters, defying gravity and gathering towards his body. His hands, feet, waist, and chest were reformed like Lego bricks. A few minutes later, when his whole body was fully restored, Qin Guang finally couldn't help but grin. Damn it, fighting with me. I'm the one who has the last laugh. He couldn't help but feel proud. In a sense, this was the strongest enemy he had defeated so far. It was hard to describe the bitterness and danger he had experienced. Just now, he almost pressed the Earth Ripper to the ground and used its blade-like arms to cut off its head. It was also at that crucial moment that the bone fragments he buried in the Terra Ripper's right elbow and knee played a crucial role, constantly grinding and colliding with each other. It was like a patient suffering from rheumatism with tophus growing in their knee joints. The Terra Ripper's joints instantly collapsed, allowing Qin Guang to seize the opportunity to escape and dislocate the Terra Ripper's limbs, successfully killing it. Just by looking at the clothes scattered all over the ground that had almost turned into powder, one could imagine the intensity of the battle. Injuries that were enough to kill an ordinary person thousands of times over, and having his clothes burst into powder, it really couldn't be more tragic. This should be a lime-flavored fruit candy, right? Picking up the dark cyan crystal and looking at it for 3 seconds, Qin Guang threw it into his mouth without thinking. He licked it and bit it. It was really a standard lime-flavored crystal, not bad. He looked back in the direction of the mountain. He didn't know if Xian Qin and Lu Fei had reached the communication base. The mechanical hive mind that Azure mentioned couldn't drop the ball at this critical moment. The old man is counting on you. Forget it, I'll just go up and take a look. So what if I'm naked? It's not like I did it on purpose. The old man is so strong that he can't be covered with leaves. How can a real warrior protect his clothes when he's fighting for his life? Running naked isn't my fault, it's fate's fault. He raised his leg and was about to go up the mountain. He stomped his foot and cursed. Damn you. Can you give me a break? It turned out that at this moment, the Heavenly Holy Grail's notification came again. 5th trial, survived the paragon of the Earth's attack. He couldn't help but curse. I'm on the verge of collapsing from the shredder, and I haven't even had a minute to catch my breath, and you've got a paragon? Just the name alone was enough to scare people. Besides, this isn't a main mission, it's just a test. You're telling me to survive its attack? Thank you so much for being so humane. The Grail didn't seem to care about his complaints. The electronic voice rang in his mind again. Countdown to Paragon's attack. Here it comes. So fast. 2. 1. This time, he even saved 3 seconds from the countdown. The ground abruptly trembled, causing Chen Guang's body to stagger. In that instant, he felt as if the earth was shaking, as if it was a real earthquake. The Paragon was coming. The shaking grew more violent, and the earth rippled like waves. He was in a half-squat horse stance, but it felt like he was surfing. He turned his head to look around, and saw that the trees around him were all crooked and swaying, like drunkards. As tree after tree collapsed, the ground Chen Guang was standing on began to rise. It really was an earthquake. Chen Guang was on full alert. He steadied himself in the midst of the violent shaking, and looked around cautiously. The hills nearby were getting shorter, and the position he was standing on was getting higher. He had risen at least 30 meters before he slowly came to a stop. Chen Guang turned his head to look in every direction. He found himself standing on a dirt slope. Where's the Paragon of the Earth? Motherfucker, come out and die. Bang! The dirt slope beneath him exploded. Perhaps it wasn't an explosion, but more like the sound of a bird breaking out of its shell. But this time it was much more violent. 2 giant arms, at least 6 meters thick, stretched out from the dirt slope. They spun in a circle, and the dirt that covered the slope scattered to the sides. When the dust settled, Chen Guang finally realized he was standing on the head of the Paragon of the Earth. This thing had come out of the dirt slope. It was huge. Chapter 788. While Chen Guang's thoughts were running wild, one of the giant arms suddenly bent and swung towards Chen Guang like a canopy that covered the sky. Chen Guang hurriedly leapt to the side, jumping off the head of the giant creature. The ruler of Earth's palm slapped its own head heavily. A loud rumble rang out, accompanied by a creaking sound. It seemed that the ruler of Earth didn't know that Chen Guang was on top of its head, treating it like a flea. The ruler of Earth thought it was like swatting a fly, but Chen Guang was in trouble. Although it was just jumping off someone else's head, this person was 30 meters tall. If it was a shorter one, it would be as tall as a 10-story building. With a "pf" sound, his entire body slammed into the ground in a very unsightly position. It wasn't convenient to describe its appearance, but it definitely wasn't very appetizing. Chen Guang lay on the ground like a pancake. He wanted to get up and run, but the pancake didn't have a spatula and couldn't move on its own. The ruler of Earth scratched its head briefly, then began to look around, as if trying to find its target. It looked around, but there was nothing. Unlike the tremblers and rippers, the ruler of Earth didn't have eyes on its head, but there were 2 large holes on the lower part of its stone head. These should be its nostrils, and there was a constant whistling sound coming from these 2 holes. It seemed to be sniffing hard, as if it could smell the scent of blood in the air, as well as the body odor of its target. In that case, the target should be nearby. But why can't I see it? It was clear that the ruler of Earth's intelligence was much higher than the tremblers and rippers, and its movements were more human-like. When it couldn't find Chen Guang, it even seemed to be at a loss. It didn't have any expression, but it gave off such a strange feeling. It raised its leg and pulled it out of the mud, then took a step forward. The giant creature lowered its head again, searching the ground for a moment, but still found nothing. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A murmur came from its head, but no one could understand it. It was probably saying something like, "What the hell," or "Where did he go?" Silently, Chen Guang thought to himself, "Big brother, I'm right under your feet. It'd be a miracle if you could find me." Thankfully, after eating the Earth Ripper's lime fruit candy, he had already digested the Ripper's energy and absorbed it into his body in a short period of time. At this time, although the other parts of his body had been smashed due to the fall, he relied on his hands to cushion the impact and protect his head. When the ruler of Earth raised its leg and stomped down, the Shredder's skull was exceptionally tough. Not only did it not shatter under the ruler's foot, it also left a deep impression in the mud. He wouldn't die, but his breathing was a little discomfort. And the ruler of Guang felt that his body was being pressed down. After another 10 seconds, the ruler of Earth finally moved the annoying giant leg away. Master Guang, who had fully recovered, saw the light of day once more. The ruler of Earth continued to walk forward. The ground rumbled, and Chen Guang, who had just recovered, bounced up. Standing behind the ruler of Earth, Chen Guang finally had a chance to see the creature's entire form. Including its head, it was more than 30 meters tall, and its entire body was made up of a dark purple rock. Apart from the 2 giant arms he'd seen earlier, the creature had 6 arms, densely spread out on both sides of its body like a spider. Chen Guang thought to himself, this thing is so big. I wonder what its weaknesses are, and what its strengths are. Is it just big? Then it should be easy to deal with? Heh, the old man now has the crazy regeneration ability of the Trembler, the super hard body of the Shredder, and the explosive strength of the Shredder. Don't be fooled by your size. I'll try to dismantle a Gundam with my bare hands today. Just as he was thinking this, the ruler of Earth in front of him seemed to become impatient and angry because it couldn't find its target no matter what. After another round of howling, it stomped its 2 giant legs on the ground as if venting its anger. This was too much. The ground shook violently, and the trees that had already fallen due to the earthquake were completely trampled into powder. Still not satisfied, the ruler of Earth stretched out its 6 giant arms and scratched the ground, as if it wanted to find Chen Guang even if it had to dig 3 feet into the ground. In fact, Chen Guang was quite happy to see this silly thing acting like a fool. Anyway, his mission was to buy time for Lioli, who was on the mountain. Although he wasn't too sure how she planned to use the mechanical hive mind, it didn't matter. Since she had made a solemn promise, it meant that she was quite confident. She should have a target in mind and not be bragging for no reason. However, this thing was making too much noise, and the ground was shaking too violently. Looking at the signal tower in the distance, which was also swaying, Chen Guang was really worried. If this thing shakes down the signal tower, who can I reason with? Otherwise, I should make some noise and see if I can attract its attention. Just as he was thinking this, Chen Guang suddenly felt his body become light, and his whole body inexplicably flew up. Could it be that the Shredder still has the ability to fly, but the old man was too ferocious before it could use it? Looking around, he realized that he was wrong. It wasn't that he had flown up, but the rock he was standing on had floated up. Not only that, but as far as the eye could see, it wasn't just the rock beneath his feet, but the soil and rocks in the entire area were all flying up in unison. Looking around, the sky and ground were filled with boulders and soil floating in the air, as if the gravity within a few miles had disappeared. That wasn't right. Although the ground had become a layer thinner, the trees that had collapsed earlier were still dangling miserably on the ground. It wasn't that there was no gravity, but that these soil and rock structures had been controlled by the ruler of Earth with a mysterious power. As expected of the ruler of Earth, she lived up to her reputation. So powerful. The old man left first. It didn't matter if the signal tower collapsed. With Lady Lioli's ability, even if there was no signal tower, she would definitely be able to build another one. This thing actually has such a superpower. Should I fight it with my head? He took a step forward and planned to jump down, but before he landed, he felt his body become light, and he floated up with the soil. What's going on? Does it mean that I've eaten the cores of the Earth Shaker and the Shredder, and I've been infected with the characteristics of the Earth element? Is that why I'm being controlled by the ruler of Earth? Come to think of it, it's a bit of a scam. He wasn't in the mood to complain. His whole body involuntarily floated up into the air with the soil and gravel. Moments later, the ground within a few miles thinned by at least 4 or 5 meters. Dirt and gravel, big and small, floated up into the air. The ruler of Earth looked around again. Although it had no eyes, it seemed to be able to see everything in front of it. It was trying to find traces of Chen Guang among the floating gravel and dirt. Chen Guang curled up behind a meter-high boulder. His body was light, and his back was pressed tightly against the rock. His whole body floated parallel to the boulder, so he wouldn't fall. It was just enough to block the ruler's line of sight. "Idiot, you want to find me? Not so easy." Ah! As he gloated, the boulder in front of him suddenly flew away without warning. Looking around, Chen Guang discovered that it wasn't just the boulder in front of him, but all the dirt and gravel floating in the air were converging toward the sky above the ruler of Earth's head. In the blink of an eye, a huge ball appeared in the sky. The sand on the ball danced all over the sky and slowly rotated. Coupled with the posture of the Lord of the Earth with his arms raised high, it looked like Sun Wukong in Dragon Ball releasing spirit bombs. This time, Chen Guang no longer had any cover around him. He had some earth elemental energy on him, but it wasn't strong enough. The ruler of Earth could allow him to float, but it couldn't gather him into a sphere like the other soil and stones. From a distance, Chen Guang and the old man looked at each other. The atmosphere was a little awkward. "Hi." Waving his hand, Chen Guang was just short of saying, "Nice to meet you." The ruler of Earth's two large nostrils exhaled a puff of white air. It wasn't clear if it was feeling pleased or glad that it had finally caught him. But it clearly didn't understand Chen Guang's kindness. In the next instant, the floating sphere that had gradually shrunk to a diameter of more than 100 meters flew diagonally towards Chen Guang. It was impossible to dodge. Chen Guang's pupils shrank. Although he seemed to be acting cute in front of the ruler of Earth, he had actually been focusing most of his attention on developing and evaluating the superpower he had temporarily gained. Lord Light, who was well versed in web novels and anime, said that even if it was the same superpower, the power displayed was related to the user's level of development. Just like the Sharingan in Naruto, it was strong at the beginning, but slowly couldn't keep up with the rhythm. Later on, all kinds of kaleidoscopes appeared and became cool again. Or Luffy's devil fruit in One Piece. It was weak at the beginning, but Luffy continued to develop the rubber fruit's ability. First gear, second gear, third gear, and fourth gear, he was invincible in the Grand Line. Chen Guang knew that he didn't have much time to slowly level up, because the opponent he was facing, the ruler of Earth, was a max-level boss. Therefore, if he wanted to win, he had to use his brain and adapt to the superpower of the Tremor and Ripper elemental creatures in his body as quickly as possible. The Tremor had the ability to regenerate, and even if it was scattered, it could reform its body. The Ripper had the ability to be hard and explosive. Its blade-like arms were incomparably sharp, and the explosive power after compressing the joints was also strong enough to make people's hair stand on end. These two abilities seemed contradictory, but if they could be ingeniously fused together, it could produce an extraordinary chemical reaction. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.